Hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. Another Friday night. We're all at home. Let's chat and have some fun. Hopefully we'll have some people join us here very soon. Got some good feedback on last week's chat, so I decided to do another. Once again, this is completely low budget style. There's nothing exciting streaming-wise going on, gameplay-wise, things like that. So let's just hang out and talk tonight, see what's on your guys' mind. Hopefully have some more of my regulars join and maybe see some new faces along the way. It'll be fun. Actually had to quit playing an arcade game to jump in here. I scheduled it about a half hour ago just so everyone knew it was coming. I had some people that wanted to join last week that weren't able to get on the chat, and wanted to give them a heads up that it was coming. And then got thoroughly engrossed in an arcade game and wasn't able to put it down, but I was able to get it turned off, get back in here so I can get the chat rolling. So hopefully we get some people join here soon, hear from you, see how things are going. Got people texting me. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I see one person in the chat. I don't know if you can chat in. I can't see who you are unless you guys chat. That was something I learned last week. It was kind of weird. All the privacy and everything. Also hoping my microphone's working. I assume it is, but it seemed to go okay last week. Let's see if I can rustle up some more people by chat. I've got a few people in mind that might want to jump in. Oh, let's see what else is going on. It is cold in the Midwest, which is weird. It's like getting to the point of late April when typically weather starts picking up a little bit. But I heard several of my friends got snow today in other Midwestern cities. We did not get snow here. It just was really stupid cold. But next week's supposed to be better. So we'll see how it goes. All right, who else we got joining in here? Got some more folks popping on. Curious what's going on out there. I'm sitting here with my boy, Punky Skunk, #1 homeboy on the PS1. Matt, do you have this game? That's the real question. If you do not, PS1 collection is not top-notch. With your full Namco set and everything. I mean, just look at this dude. You are missing out. This is the finest Super Famicom entertainment on the PS1 you can get. Courtesy of our friends at Jaleco, whatever you want to call it. Whatever your fancy is. It has such great puns on the packaging, too. I'm going to show that. This camera really sucks. I got to get a new webcam. It has stages like Viva Las Punky and Tomb Waiter? Oh, because Punky getting wet. Pretty wild. He actually isn't even getting wet. I don't know why it says Tomb Waiter. He's just going through a tomb like our old gal Lara Croft. What are you up to, Matt? Just found like a piece of hair inside the case, and I don't think it was mine. It probably came from wherever I got this used. I've owned this a long time. I think I got this. I don't know where I got this. It's been a long, long time. I probably got this at Funko back in the day. I think this came out in '98. Yeah, '98. Which it got really bad reviews because everyone was all about 3D, 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 and this was a 2D game, which is weird. But I liked it, even though I didn't pay much for it. I think it's going for quite a bit more now that the Super Famicom prototype has been discovered. People are starting to buy this up. PS1 has gotten ridiculous. Shadow Tower, wow. What is Shadow Tower going for now? I haven't looked lately. Last I looked, it was like 100, I think. Which... the deal with Shadow Tower is there's a lot of sealed copies of that game that pop up. So I feel like there's got to be just some distributor just sitting on stacks of it somewhere. 140 to 160, yeah, that's a little crazy. It's not like the game's fun. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't know. That's a lot. I just put in an offer on a PS1 game tonight. I'm waiting for the seller to decide if they want to sell it to me. And then I've got another game I'm looking for, Japanese game, GunCon game that I just found out existed. It's a Namco release that only came out in Japan. And actually is extremely cheap, but it's kind of difficult to buy games from Japan right now because the only Japanese shipping service that's sending stuff internationally is EMS, and that's the expensive option. So I might wait until airmail hopefully gets turned back on in the future. Yeah, Shadow Tower is just like Kingsfield, just basically same game engine, just different characters, more obscure. I guess I'm stuck on like PS1 rarities like that. Because I don't know if people are going for full PS1 sets now, if it's gotten that ridiculous, or if they're just trying to grab all the rare games or what. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. I still think there's a lot of games that people have really like attached to that are the PS1 rarities, but I still think there's a lot of stuff that's under the surface that people haven't discovered yet. That sentient that you got, I'm assuming you bought it. That would be definitely part of that group. Yeah, Persona has definitely gone nuts. Persona 2 also. I'm still super bummed that my Persona 2 is not complete. It's missing a manual, and I just realized that like a year ago, and I haven't really done anything about it, but I bought it like way back in the 90s for pennies and just sat on it, and one day I just happened to open it up and realized mine is not complete. No, I think I bought your Persona 1. Yeah. Persona 2 I've been sitting on that for a long time. I don't even remember. I guess I bought your Persona 1. I bought a bunch of RPGs from you. I don't remember if I bought that from you. I probably did. But that one was complete. Brigadine, yeah, that one's going nuts. I still haven't even played it. I think did I get that from you? I know I got the Clock Towers from you. I remember that. I did play those. Those are fun. They're weird as hell. Those play good with the mouse. Trying to see what other homies I need to invite to the chat. I got a couple in mind. We do a little texting here. See if we can get some action. I thought this time would work good. I picked 9 o'clock just because I figured it was 9 o'clock Central. So I figured whatever coast you're on, it would be a reasonable time to jump on. What game? What was I talking about? Oh, I was mentioning that. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. I was mentioning that Sentient that you bought. I guess you bought it. I think that's going to be like one of those next wave rarity games that people aren't really talking about yet. Send this to a couple other people. I'm just spamming people by chat or by text. That's what I do. That's how you socially network, right? Send it to this person. And trying to think who else would want to get in on this. I know somebody else would want to get in on this. That's a few peeps. Yeah, Psygnosis. They do have some weird stuff. Some good stuff, I guess. I kind of need to get that G-Police variant that they did. It's pretty weird. It's a double disc game and like a flappy double disc case versus the thick double disc case that it originally came out in. I don't really think it goes for that much, but it's kind of interesting. And they might have done that with another game. I can't remember. I think I got some more peeps that are going to join. Yeah, G-Police has a variant. And then I thought there was one other Psygnosis game that has a variant. But they weren't long box games to start. They were just like double disc games that went to single disc. So it was kind of like Resident Evil Director's Cut. It was basically the same deal like that. But they went from a double disc to a single disc variant. Oh, we have Lenny. Welcome, sir. Glad you were able to join this week. I know you missed out last week. What's going on in your world? That's a really good price for Namco Museum Encore. I probably paid way more than $20 for that. I've owned it like a decade, but it's gone nuts. Lenny, we're talking PS1 stuff, and I've brought the classic Punky Skunk to the chat with us tonight to keep us company. I know you've probably played it. Matt, have you looked at the Japanese Namco anthology collections? There's like 2 of those. They're kind of weird. They're not really officially part of the Namco Museum series, but they're I want to say it's all Japanese Sega Mega Drive games that are on a PS1 compilation. They're not they're weird because it's games that I don't think either had an arcade version or they just went with the console versions of them. And there's really nothing killer on them. Like there's the game that we got as Powerball on the Genesis, whatever the Japanese version name of that is. That's on one of them. Rising Zan, Samurai Gunman. Man, I wish I had that soundtrack just blasting in the background right now. It was the best game intro music of all time on the PS1, I would say. Gameplay is but very cool character, and definitely love that The packaging on the game is cool with the gold foil. H-Tech trying to be all like working designs and stuff. It was a good call. Developed by WEP Systems, aka the Cool Borders Company. They thought they could make a samurai action game, which was kind of a stretch probably for them. Yeah, there's a lot of good one-liners and lyrics in that one for sure. I recruited a few people for the chat. We'll see if it worked. I'm hoping just some of my YouTube regulars that I don't even have their phone numbers for will jump in here soon. Lenny, what have you been playing lately? I did not know that. But that song was self-composed by the H-Tech team. That's pretty cool. H-Tech was a pretty badass company until they sold out and started doing mobile games and basically got off console. I think I narrowed down what their very last console release was, or physical release. It was this weird PSP game that I can't remember the full title of. It was it Lords of Shadow? That might be a different game. Something to that effect. And I've never bought it, but every time I pick it up, I consider it. And then I look at the back, and it's got some weird company attached to it, like a Russian company or something, or Eastern European company that developed it. I mean, it probably can't be any good. I've never read any reviews or anything on it. But I want to say that was their last physical release, and it came out in like 09, maybe 08, something like that. And then they also did Way of the Samurai 3, and I think it was the PS3 version. Yeah, it was the PS3 version, but they didn't do the Xbox 360 version, which is weird. It came out on both in the US, but they only published the PS3 version. And my understanding is that was the end of H-Tech. It was around that era, which stinks because they did some really cool stuff on PS1 especially. PS2 also. Nice. I'll keep you busy. We had a few people on last week that bought the Final Fantasy VII remake, but I haven't got that yet. I might this weekend. We'll see. I got a few things that I'm out bidding on and watching on eBay and stuff like that. I'm just kind of deciding how I want to spend my money this week. So, yeah, I hear you. The backlog is ridiculous. I'm pulling out some weird stuff. I mean, Punky Skunk got brought out tonight, so you never know. Just something on the shelf grabs your attention. You just want to grab it and start playing it. I played some NES this week. Played some weird stuff on that I really haven't dug into in years. I played Thunder and Lightning, which is a very strange game as far as like its timing. It was the Arkanoid style game that came after Arkanoid by Romstar, and it does not support the Arkanoid mouse, which is ludicrous. If the perfect controller already existed and it doesn't even support it. So it's really awkward to play a paddle game with a D-pad, and that's literally the only option to play it. But it does have a button you can push to speed the paddle from side to side, and so that helps a little bit. The graphics look nice. I mean, I can't knock the graphics. Good game design, but just the game, it's killed by not supporting the mouse. And then the other thing I found very interesting about it, and I guess I need to look into this more because there might be more games with this character, but the the main character that sits on the paddle or whatever, or controls the paddle, is Mr. Chin. And I never made the connection, but Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise is an excellent single-screen platformer for the Game Boy, and it's the same main character, and that's also a Romstar game. And I'd never realized that they were trying to spin off Mr. Chin as a proper mascot character with multiple games, so now I need to look more into the history of Mr. Chin and Romstar, because I've loved Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise for years, and I think that's a highly underrated game. So now I got to look at what other games that Mr. Chin has appeared in. Yeah, the Arkanoid Vows, I mean, Funko used to have a bunch of them, but they never were cheap. They always were like $30 a piece, maybe 25 at best. It's one of those things that never really dropped price or gained price. It's always been expensive. Maybe I'll dig out Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise. The game, I don't know. I need to expose more people to that game. That is such a great Game Boy title, and it was an early one too. I think it came out in like '90, so plays really smoothly. If you like the single screen platformers, Bubble Bobble style games like I do. Any new releases coming out? I know like all this stuff just dropped. Is there anything like coming out the next few weeks I need to be looking out for? I don't really know what's out there right now, especially for PS4. Seeing some people join in. Hopefully they'll chat here shortly. See what else is going on. I can just keep talking about Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise all night. I mean, that's a topic for its day. Oh, hell yeah. Geisha Boy. So, interesting story with Geisha Boy, Geisha Boy, whatever you want to call it. Photo Boy, essentially. So, I've got the Japanese PS1 version, which is the enhanced PC Engine port. It's essentially the PC Engine game. They didn't really go too crazy with it, but it looks a little bit sharper on the PS1. I think they might have added one stage, if I remember right. But there also was the title is slightly different, but it's Gekibo, Gekibo, 2 for the PS2 in Japan, and they went with the cel shaded graphics with that one. It looks pretty sharp. Doesn't play as good as the original one, but what is very interesting to me is that game supports the very short-lived in Japan PS2 printer. So if you think about like the Game Boy printer, there was a printer for the PS2, and it has the greatest accessory title ever. It is known as the Pop Egg, and it does actually resemble an egg. The sides of it, the shape of it is egg-shaped. And I always just thought it was cool that Gekibo 2 supports the Pop Egg, and I assume what that means is you can take photos in the game and then print them out with the Pop Egg and make little, I mean, they wouldn't be stickers, I don't think, but you could make just little printouts of the crazy crap you see in the game, which for its time is pretty neat. The Pop Egg only supports like 6 games, and I think that's probably the only one that's English playable. So there's not really a huge demand for it. And what I saw recently on eBay is you can get a Pop Egg really cheap from Japan. Like I would have thought that would be one of those super obscure and expensive accessories, but I guess it just hasn't really been discovered yet. So I don't know. I was watching one on eBay. I didn't buy it. The shipping costs are obviously really expensive because it's a bulky package that it comes in. The guy actually had the original box, I think. But and I guess the other thing is like, where would you get ink for it? Because I'm sure it takes some kind of unique ink cartridge that, unless the thing is miraculously not dried out, it probably wouldn't work. But yeah, I would definitely like to play some Gekibo 2 with the Pop Egg attachment. I think it runs off the USB adapter on the PS2, and make some little printouts of my favorite pictures from the game. The one thing they also toned down in the sequel is it doesn't have nearly as many licensed characters, or I should say unlicensed famous characters that the first game did. I mean, the first one has like cameos from Michael Jackson and Madonna and all this stuff in cartoon form that probably would have got them in a lot of legal trouble. But the second one, they didn't really, chance it again to put some of that stuff in. So, yeah, Tale of the Sun is a very, very weird experience. You don't see it very often either. I would say the other Art Dink games like Aquanaut's Holiday are pretty up there too. I would like to get it's very weird, but Japan got a PS3 remake of Aquanaut's Holiday. Maybe the original sold better in Japan, but I mean, to me, that's super weird because nobody bought that game originally here. So why would you make a fancy remake of that? Yep. No one can stop Mr. Domino. They made, was it A Train? I think was another one of theirs. Was that early big box game? I don't know. What else is up? I'm talking too much. What other PS1 stuff have you guys been playing, if anything? Oh, yeah. Carnage Heart. Forgot about that one, too. That game has quite possibly the two fattest manuals included in it. I've never learned how to play it. I popped it in, and I got overwhelmed very, very quickly with that game. It's probably good if you take the time to learn it. We never had time until now. Now maybe it's the time to dig into Carnage Heart. Become a big fan of the series of one. I wonder if Art Dink is still around. I got the idea they weren't, but there was that remake a few years ago. Let me Google that. They still have a website. Well, let me read Art Dink's mission statement because it's the first thing that pops up on their website. We, Art Dink, always pursuing intellectual curiosity, create works with innovative ideas and outstanding technology, new culture for customers. We aim to provide values. And yes, they are still making stuff. And apparently they are writing the A Train series to glory still. So I guess that was a bigger hit than I thought. And there is a Switch release of A Train. So there you go. Now we know the question that nobody really cared about. So maybe we'll get a new Carnage Heart someday. It's possible. I thought I would pick Shenmue 3 back up this week and start playing again, but I didn't. I really want to finish that game. I'm in the, I don't want to spoil it because I know there's probably still some people still playing it, but like I'm in the second major world of the game. Like you spend a big chunk of the first part of the game in one world, and then now I'm in the second city, town, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of the second act of the game, I guess would be the way to put it. And I think that it is very much like the second act is very much like Shenmue 2 as far as what the setting is like. So if you played Shenmue 2 and all the Hong Kong stages, you're not technically in Hong Kong in the new one in the second act, but it's very similar as far as what the city is like and the characters you meet and the modern world that it was trying to be for 1987 Asia. But yeah, the game, for as much money as it raised and how long it took to put out, it could have been better. I think, and it's sad that like this would be a deciding factor for me, but I think one of the main reasons it doesn't have the true spirit of Shenmue 1 and 2 is it doesn't have any of the licensed Sega arcade games in it. So you still visit arcades and play games, but you don't get to play Outrun or Space Harrier or anything good. You're just playing Whack-A-Mole and stuff like that. So kind of like whatever. Matt, are you working super early again tomorrow? I know you had to peace out pretty early last week. It sucks. That's rough. I haven't had to work at 5 a.m. in probably a good 15 years. I remember what that was like, and it was terrible. I used to work in the city and would have to be at my store at like 4:45 some days for deliveries. Not every day of the week, but just like maybe once a week. And I just remember it was so hard to get to bed the night before and then be able to wake up. It was almost like, why even bother going to sleep? But, you know, I was younger. I was more able to do stuff like that. My old ass can't do stuff like that anymore. Trying to think what else is new. I got a new arcade game in the mail today. I was just playing it before I jumped on the chats. It's quite a bit of fun. It's a very obscure Konami game. And I'm going to save it for my next pickups video. I'll probably put some footage in of it, but I think people are going to be like, they're either not going to be interested at all, or they're going to be like, what the hell? I had no idea this existed. And that's kind of how I approached it. It's fun. Yeah. The working from home thing is it's definitely different, especially doing it like almost every day. I had to be at a meeting a virtual meeting, of course, that started at 8 a.m. this morning, and the traffic in the hallways of this house was so rough that I made it to my seat to be ready for the meeting at 7:59. I mean, I barely had time to get some OJ. It was a really rough commute this morning. I hope the traffic dies down for Monday so I can sleep a little bit more, but we'll see. What did he want for Fox Hunt? Because I don't even know what the market price is on that game now. Yeah, I never bought that Konami. I think it's called the Konami Antiques Collection. And I know there's the Konami Classics Collection on PS1. And I can't remember if there's some overlap, no overlap with those two collections, but I'm pretty sure the one you have on Saturn has some unique stuff, if not all of it unique from the PS1. The PS1 collection, like, I don't know if they were planning to do a sequel to it or what, but I feel like it cut off like right at the era when some really cool, weird Konami games came out. And I've got another arcade board I bought a few months ago called Pandora's Palace that I just learned about last year, and I absolutely love it. I think that should have been a huge hit for Konami, and it was like 84, I think is when it came out, which obviously was peak video game crash, so maybe that's why it never took off. But a game like that on the PS1 would have been perfect had they added something like that to that collection. And then this game I just got today, I mean, it was a little bit after that. I think it came out in 87. So if they had just done another collection that kind of focused on their 85 to 89 years. That probably would have been enough. That they could do a whole other collection, maybe 30 games. There'd probably be some pretty good stuff on that. All right, we have Tom in the chat. Got 3 locals in here right now. This is good stuff. How are you? Fox Hunt is 170. God, I mean, I get it. That game is rare. You don't see it too often. It's really bad. I mean, it's funny bad, but it is not peak FMV action. Tom, we're talking PS1 oddball titles and Konami arcade games of the early 80s. It's kind of the hot topics of the moment. Playing some Resident Evil 4 on Xbox X. Nice. How are you? I'm not going to be able to pronounce your name. Behan? Not sure. Welcome to the chat. Thanks for joining us. Dude, Van Ark PS1 is going to be top elite rarity someday when people discover it. I have no idea what it's going for now. I know it's been going up, but that game hovered at like the $90 mark for so long. And I'm telling you, that is a very difficult one to find. By our friends at Chaleco, who brought us Punky Skunk. I haven't played that Gamera 2000. Does it just play like a Godzilla? Oh, I think it is a shooter. Yeah, no, I have read about that game. I just haven't played it. But yeah, that's pretty difficult to get. Oh, McFly has joined us too. Nice, nice. Lola J, welcome. I don't think I know you. I don't really understand your question, but yeah, okay. I like those systems. Oh, that's right. I remember you telling me about that game. I'd like to play that. Anyone get the Panzer Dragoon redo on the Switch? Kind of curious how that is. I've heard some mixed things. I like that series, but I'm not really sure I need to play a graphically pretty version. I mean, I think the Saturn version looks just fine, honestly. Okay, that's weird. We had like 2 screen names I've never seen before jump in, chat one thing, and I think they left. So that's a bummer. Who else do we need to invite? I sent a few texts to some people I had phone numbers for. I got one person I'm going to text. It'll be a long shot. I bet I won't be able to get them to come in. Streets of Rage 4. Yeah. When's Limited Fun going to ship that one? Like 6 months from now? Yeah, Lenny, I'm still on the fence with the Switch. I mean, I wouldn't kick it out of bed, but I don't feel like I have to have it. And I guess it doesn't matter. You can't find them to buy right now anyways. So I guess that makes the decision real easy. I like the Switch Lite as far as the form factor of it, but the no HDMI out just kills it. I have zero desire for that if I can't hook it up to the TV. Trying to think what else I played this week. Um, so I played NES. I played Thunder and Lightning, which I talked about earlier, for those that were in the chat earlier, with the classic mascot character, Mr. Chin, also known as the Romstar mascot that was in Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise on the Game Boy. And obviously that went nowhere, but those are cool games. I played, I pulled out my copy of Bonk's Adventure for NES. For some reason, I wanted to see how it stacked up to the TurboGrafx version that obviously is much more popular. And I mean, it is very well done for the NES, especially for like a 1993 game that they put a lot of effort into it. You could tell. But let's just definitely file that one under for collecting purposes only. I see no reason to spend the money that game goes for today when you can easily just you could have a whole TurboGrafx system or even probably a Duo plus Bonk for the price of the NES game, and still even get the sequel maybe, and still have some change left in your pocket. So I would say it's a nice technical achievement for the system, but it's not as good as the Turbo version, and it came out much later. Oh, I have. Yeah, I totally think that Panzer Dragoon will come out on PS4. I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, I think I feel like Nintendo is locking in a bunch of games for debuts, and then a few months later, this stuff comes out on PS4 anyway. So I don't know if that's part of the strategy, or maybe just Switch is selling so well worldwide that that's where it's getting the first releases on, and then usually later on you get a PS4 version. So they keep the price down. I mean, I would buy it, I guess. I don't really see it's essential, but I guess I would get it. I'm trying to think what else I played on NES. I played like 3 or 4 games. This was like Tuesday this week. That's why my mind's a little mush. I know what I played. Thundercade. Anyone played that on NES? It was an arcade game originally. I never played the arcade version, but the NES version was published by Sammy. So I thought it was going to be this cool, like, I don't know, Sammy did some interesting stuff for the NES. It turns out it was developed, the NES version was developed by Micronics, which was like I don't know what you call it, like a behind the curtain developer for a lot of publishers. They put out stuff on a lot of different systems. And they don't really have a good reputation. There's a lot of really poor NES games that were developed by Micronics. But Thundercade is interesting. You play, at least the first stage or second stage, you play as a guy on a motorcycle. And it's an up-screen scrolling shooter, sort of. It's more like Commando style, I guess. But it does force scroll. You don't have to manually scroll. And I guess what I would describe it most is like it feels like a Gunsmoke ripoff, which should be a compliment because I absolutely love Gunsmoke. It's one of my favorite NES games. But again, it's like Thunder and Lightning. It came after the classic, and it doesn't do anything better, so why play it? So I played, I don't know, I played some Thundercade. I played a few stages of it, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. It was all right. Be a good one if you found it cheap, if you're looking for something different on NES, but not a classic. I'm not keeping up good enough on the PS5. When is that supposed to launch? Like fall, Christmas next year? I don't know when that comes out. Summer, maybe they'll push it up since everyone's at home. They would buy it right now. If there was a new console. Yeah, I assume Thundercade's pretty cheap. You don't see it. I tell you what, you don't see it complete very often. At least I don't. The box art is actually super cool. I'd like to have the box for that one. I have the manual, but no box. November, okay. I feel like if they could get the PS5 out right now with just a few games, like people would buy the crap out of it. Just with everyone being at home and, you know, got their Trump bucks ready to spend some money. Maybe getting their Trump bucks soon if they're getting them. Yeah, I think it's a given that they'll. I don't know how you could not do Panzer Saga. It doesn't even have to be good. I mean, I think if they just found a way to get that game on a modern platform, people would buy a ton of it just due to the legacy behind that game, how difficult it's been to get. That's unfortunate. One of the people I invited to chat is busy playing Call of Duty. Talk about a normie game. I mean, I guess if that's your thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see. What other questions are floating out there? Good question for the collectors. Do you have extra game manuals or just piecemeal what I have? We'll let the group answer that. I would say for me, I've got a few dupe manuals, but I usually trade them off or sell them. I don't really stockpile them. I do have a few for the NES now, I think. But definitely don't mind having some extra manuals around. Oh, sorry, McFly. I didn't mean to offend Call of Duty players. I'm sure it's a perfectly fine game. It's just really the reputation of all the people that play Call of Duty that give it a bad rap, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree. Piecemealing games is not a cost-effective way to build your game collection, but sometimes it's the most effective. Just you could space that over time. I think every Genesis manual for every good game on the Genesis was like flushed in a toilet circa 1992 or something because they just don't exist. You just don't see people selling loose manuals for Genesis like you do for all the other systems. It's like they bought the Genesis game and they got this great clamshell case. It's going to keep the cartridge nice and protected. And they open it up and they're like, oh, here's my new cartridge. I'm going to go play it in my Genesis. This is so exciting. And they're like, manual? What do I need that for? And they're all just gone. Completely. Whereas like NES is completely the opposite. You can find manuals 10 times easier than boxes because they were those cardboard boxes. An El Viento manual. Yeah, that would not be an easy thing to come by these days. Speaking of Genesis, since I've got some Genesis collecting friends on here, have you guys seen the Ultimate that is currently on eBay? There is somebody selling Airbuster complete in the box with the Kaneko glove, which is rare in itself, but they also have the official Kaneko letterhead congratulating the person who mailed away for it on their new Kaneko glove, and also the original envelope from Kaneko corporate office that all that stuff came in. And I would love to have it. And I watched it. I think they're asking $650 or best offer. And so I just happened to watch it because I was like, oh, maybe this will drop in price dramatically and I would be interested. And the seller shot me an offer, which is a new thing you can do now. If people watch your auctions, they can send you an offer. So I always like that feature with eBay. Unfortunately, the offer the seller shot me was $600 instead of $650, and that's still a little too rich for my blood. I would love to have that whole setup, and it looks to be in awesome condition, but I'm not really in the mood to spend that kind of money for it. I think it would go perfectly with my Bloody Wolf TurboGrafx 16 mail away bandana, the camo bandana for Bloody Wolf that I have. And I do have the original envelope that was mailed in as well. So that would be kind of nice to get my 16-bit gaming on with my Bloody Wolf bandana, my Canico glove. I think I would be well set. So somebody come up with some good chat questions. We got a good group of friends here. Curious what's on your mind, what you guys are wanting to learn. We've got some good combined knowledge here. We've got some former video game store employees in here back in the day. Got some hardcore collectors here. It's a pretty good group. A lot of Sega fans in here. And PS1 fans, all the good stuff. I know something else I can talk about. So, Neo Geo Pocket Color has lost its goddamn mind for pricing. I mean, we're talking about like PS1 games spiking. Neo Geo Pocket Color has gone ridiculously apeshit, is the only way to put it. I would really like to have a complete in the box Neo Geo Pocket Color set. I'm about halfway there, but it is quickly becoming completely unattainable. So a complete set is 30 complete in the box games for the US, and there was 2 games that were released cartridge only. And I want to say I've got one of the 2 loose only games, and I've got like 15 of the complete games. And there was a seller on eBay this week that had like 7 or 8 complete in the box games listed, which is a lot more than you typically see from one person being sold at the same time. And they actually were in Missouri. They were in Columbia. I don't know who it was, but I just noticed where the auction said it was listed. And they had one, only of all those ones they were selling. Unfortunately, there was only one I needed, or fortunately, however you look at it. It was Puyo Pop, which is the kind of crappy, Puyo Puyo game for Neo Geo Pocket Color. And I really like Puyo Puyo, but the Puyo Pop is not the pinnacle of the series by any means. So, I bid on it. I was watching it last second. I thought I put in a pretty aggressive bid for it, and it ended up going for $265, I think, which is insane. And then after losing that and not regretting it, because I'm not going to spend that much on that game, he also sold his Magical Drop Pocket, which I do have, for $355 for a Neo Geo Pocket Color game complete. And I mean, I agree, that game is very rare. It took me a long time to find that one, but that is crazy money for that system. Absolutely crazy money for that system. So there must be a few other people out there that are going for the full set, because I never in my wildest dreams thought those games were going to go for that kind of money. And you really don't see them. So, I mean, I guess I sort of get it, but I don't know. So, yeah, that guy probably sold 8 games, and I bet he made well over 12 or $1,300 on them. So I don't know if he was just liquidating his collection or what, but he did very well looking at the prices those games sold for. Some of even the more common ones went a lot higher than I would have expected. A renovation compilation disc, yeah, that would be completely awesome. Even if it was just like all of the Wolf Team games or something like that, or Telenet, or what are all the different companies that they published for. Like, that'd be really cool to see those in the compilation for sure. Technosoft collection. That could possibly be done. I mean, Sega owns the rights to Technosoft stuff, or at least they used to. I don't know if they still do. So, as far as like Wolf Team and Renovation and Telenet, like, who knows who owns the rights to that stuff? But Technosoft probably could be done if Sega still owns the rights to it all. Sunsoft would be great to see a compilation of all their stuff. So there are Sunsoft PS1 Japanese collection discs. A lot of people don't know about those. They're pretty neat. There's 6 separate discs, and they're all Famicom games. And they're not like, I mean, you get like the artwork and stuff on the disc, but there's really nothing that special about it as far as bonuses. Maybe there's only 5. There's either 5 or 6 collections. I can't remember which. But they were really chintzy in how they did it because you only get 2 games per disc. So you're only talking about 10 or 12 games total. But some of those go for real money because I don't know why I can't think of the name of it. That Sunsoft game that came out in Europe and Japan that we didn't get, that everybody wants, that is like a technological marvel. It's an action platformer with a cute little blobby thing. I don't know why I can't think of the name of it. That's on one of those PS1 discs. So if you look at prices on that one, it's like as much or more than a Famicom cart costs loose of the game. So I think those are neat packs. Some of the other ones have like the Japanese version of Journey to Silius, Super Spy Hunter, Blaster Master, of course, all that. So they're pretty neat packages. But I have no idea who owns the rights to Sunsoft stuff anymore now that their Sun Corporation is gone. Working Designs rights? Yeah, I don't know. Vic Ireland's still around, but I don't know if he owns the rights to his Working Design stuff. He's got a new company now that he's doing called Gaijin Works. They really haven't done a whole lot. They did that Summon Night 6, I think it was, on PS Vita and PS4. And I think they did a PSP game that was like mail order only. Classic Heroes 2, maybe it was. I don't know. It's one of the Classic Heroes games. And I think they did some translation work for some other games, but didn't have their branding on the package. But I don't know. And it's weird. They don't really do much at all. They only put out like maybe a game every couple years or so. So, which I guess isn't really too off the mark of how Frequent Working Designs was putting out stuff. Christmas Santa one, the Sunsoft one in Europe. No, that's Days Before Christmas. That one was on the Mega Drive, and maybe there was a Super Famicom version of that. I can't remember, but I know it was on the Mega Drive. Why can't I think of that game? It's like one of the biggest forbidden fruit NES games. So they actually, and another one they did. So there were 2 NES exclusives that came out in Europe and Japan that we never got, that were Sunsoft games that were really popular. Or not really popular, but really like technological marvels for the system, I would say. So one of them is a game that came out in Europe as Euphoria. It's kind of spelled weird. Uforia. And then the other one, I'm telling you, I'm going to have it. Oh, I know what it is. It's Gimmick or Mr. Gimmick, depending on the market. It was Gimmick in Japan and Mr. Gimmick in Europe. And that game is supposed to be fantastic. I just watched a video of it. I've never played it, but that cartridge has been expensive as hell in Europe and Japan for years. It's always been one of the NES holy grails that we never got. And the interesting thing about Gimmick is my buddy in Japan, who has his new arcade hardware, the EXA Arcadia, has actually contracted with the original game developer of Gimmick, and they're coming out with a new 2020 arcade release of Gimmick. that is some pretty deep connections. So bringing back a very obscure character for a all new release in glorious 2D as an arcade title, and I think that will be so much fun to play when that comes out. And the way prices are going for the original version, you might be better off just to buy the new arcade game. Yeah, I agree, McFly. Vita is going to be ridiculous to collect for because those games just never really dropped, and then now they've disappeared from retail. Since I have a near complete Namco fetish, I didn't know I did that. Well, we were talking about Namco PS1. I guess that was kind of where that came from. I'm not going for a complete Namco set, but Namco really did some nice work on the PS1 for sure. So any other publishers, I'm going for a full set like Sunsoft. So I'm not going for a full Sunsoft set either, even though they've got some really neat stuff too. So I'm one video I've got in the works, and I probably could film it this weekend, but I think I'm going to hold off. Is the Taito PS1 subset. So all the Taito games that came out on that system for the US market, which is kind of interesting because Taito USA didn't even exist by the time the PS1 came around, so all of their games got published by other third parties, and there's quite a lot of them that put out games. I thought about going for a Japanese Taito full set for PS1. I think that would be kind of fun, but there's some games that they put out that were just so text heavy it wouldn't be playable, and they also had a lot of games in the Densha to Go series, which is their train simulator, which was a huge hit in Japan, and there's like probably I wouldn't doubt it if there's not 7 or 8 different Densha to Go games, or at least variants on the PS1 Japanese market. I don't need all those in my collection as much as I love the Taito stuff. There's also a Densha to Go PS1 controller, a licensed controller to play the train games with the handles and everything like that to, be the train conductor. I'll tell you something I would like to have PS1 wise with goofy controllers is Japan got the Power Shovel controller by Taito for the Power Shovel game that we did get here. We got the game, we just didn't get the controller. And it's essentially like a virtual on controller. It's twin stick controller, so you can operate the Power Shovel with little buttons on the top. And it's bright yellow. It really stands out. It's a beautiful design. The packaging on the box is awesome too. They really did a nice job on that. Power Shovel is a fantastic PS1 game. Even without the special controller, you can still get the same effect with the DualShock sticks because you use both the sticks to play it. It's completely insane. Just to give you an idea of some of the mini games in Power Shovel it has very serious like accurate parking of the Power Shovel and operating the crane and all that you can practice. But then you just get into the absurdity of the game, and you can do things like rescue giant turtles from a swimming pool and move them into a fresh body of water using your Power Shovel. And you can also scoop hot curry onto giant plates using the Power Shovel according to how spicy the customer orders it. It is an amazing, amazing game. If you have not had the joy of Power Shovel for PS1 in your life, I highly recommend you pick that game up. And it's not that expensive. Acclaim published it in the US and actually didn't screw it up. The translation and some of the things they just left in Japanese, which it could be seen as lazy, but also a benefit considering how much Acclaim messed with some of the earlier title releases. I give that game 2 cranes up. It's fantastic. I think anyone could be won over by how insane that is. There's some great footage on YouTube. Some video game con years ago, and I don't even know where it was or what it was, but it's a whole group of people in this game convention, and this Power Shovel expert is sitting down to play it on a couch or whatever, and just they're live streaming it, and this crowd is just blown away at what they're watching. Like, they don't even know how to react. how insane Power Shovel is. So, oh, awesome. McFly's played it. That's great. So there's also, I barely played it. I probably need to pull it out, but there's also another Power Shovel game that Taito didn't develop that came out after it, and it's called Dirt Jockey in the US. It was a budget title. I think it is just heavy on the sim stuff. I don't think there's any ludicrous Japanese stuff going on in the game, unfortunately. But I think it does support the Power Shovel controller. So if I ever do get that controller in my life, I will be playing both Power Shovel and Dirt Jockey to get the maximum bang for the buck. I think it's so cool that it exists. Yeah, if you've got that sitting around, you got to play it, McFly. Like that's a good week's worth of entertainment. There's other mini games in that I wish I could remember right now. I mean, another one I just thought of is so weird. It's like you're playing Price is Right with the Power Shovel, I guess would be the best way to describe it. So you're in like a baseball stadium, and there's like various items or like dollar amounts that are on pedestals, and it pops up on the screen like make $7.42, and so you have to like bang your Power Shovel on the correct amounts of money that add up to the total that tells you to do on the top of the screen. It's great. I'm probably not doing it justice, but it is a completely insane game. It is so much fun. And you're learning life skills. I mean, you never know, like in our post-COVID world, how many of us might become Power Shovel operators? Maybe that's a future career path that you can take. I can take, anybody can take that plays that game. So I'm always trying to build my work repertoire of things I can do. All right, I'm going to pause with my chattiness. What other stuff is on your minds? Anybody, we don't have to talk about games. Anyone been watching any movies or YouTube streams or anything you recommend we need to check out? I can tell you I've been completely addicted to the Motor Week stream of the week. They did the 1986, 1987 seasons. They ran it once yesterday for 13 hours straight. And then I think they looped it after that. And then they're going to do it again on Sunday. So if you missed that stream, they're going to show it again on Sunday. And they are super addicting if you like old 80s cars or if you lived 80s cars like I did. They're so much fun to watch. Nice. Tom got his PC Engine Mini. That's awesome. I'm on the fence. I mean, I definitely would like to have one down the road. I didn't pre-order or anything like that, but that's cool that it's shipping. I assume it came in from Amazon Japan or some such, because I think Amazon had the exclusive on it. Well, that would be cool, watching all the Marvel movies in order, in not chronological order, but what is it called? Timeline order or whatever. That probably doesn't make sense. It's whatever it is. But I get you. I understand what you're trying to get at. I like the Marvel movies. There's a few I've not seen. The only Thor movie I saw was Ragnarok, and I think is there two other ones? I think there's two other ones. I never saw the other ones. And there's some of the other random ones I didn't see, like some of those early Hulk movies. Probably aren't that good. Yeah, I agree. If I was gonna if I had to choose between, oh, nice, I got Fox here too. Awesome, welcome. If I had my choice between the PC Engine Mini, the Core Graphics Mini, which is also Japanese, or the TurboGrafx 16 Mini, I would definitely go with the. It pains me to say this. I would go with the Core Graphics Mini because it comes with the small form factor like the original PC Engine, the white PC Engine, but you get the turbo controllers because that one has the little switches just like the US TurboGrafx 16. The original PC Engine, the white PC Engine, did not originally have turbo switches on the controller, and so for full authenticity, the Mini does not either. And I get it for the the nostalgia, but it's kind of a setback that you don't get the nice controller with the turbo switches for that one. So I've already got a genuine white PC Engine Mini, so I guess I don't have to have that for the Mini, but I would probably go with the less attractive but still small Core Graphics Mini. And my understanding is I think the games are basically the same on all three versions. Maybe there's a couple exclusives on the Japanese version that are fully Japanese text, but I don't think you could really lose as far as the game selection, whichever version you go with. It's a pretty impressive list. I'm watching Rift Tracks. I'm not familiar with that. Fox, any anime recommendations? I am not the biggest anime watcher, but I like what I usually check out. I can't complain about it. I think it's pretty cool. Oh, wow. Maybe me and Tom can explain the PC Engine. I don't understand. PC Engine, TurboGrafx Duo, Core Graphics, what is the difference? All I ever had was TurboGrafx 16. Okay, so we might need like an hour to explain just how convoluted both the Japanese and US NEC systems get, because it is out of control. So let's talk US first. I think that would probably be the easiest way to explain it. So US had your TurboGrafx 16 system that uses the credit card size hue cards, of course. Then very shortly after that launched, you had the Turbo CD, which is the attachment that goes on the back of the US TurboGrafx. And with the CD, it came with the version 1.0 super system or system card. And you have to put the cue card, system card into the TurboGrafx to interface with the CD to make it all work. So the Turbo CD will play TurboGrafx 16 games through the hue card slot. It'll play original CD-ROM Turbo CD games. Then we get into the convoluted part. So then they came out later on with kind of two things. They came out with the Turbo Duo, which is a great form factor US system that has the TurboGrafx slots, and you have the ability to play Turbo CD games. And it can also play Super CD games, which is the enhanced CDs that require more RAM to play or whatever. And to do that, the Turbo Duo has the enhanced system card essentially built into the hardware. So you don't need a system card in the slot to play any CD games on the Duo. That's the nice thing about it. But this Turbo Duo is kind of a great compromise because it can play cue card games, it can play CD games, and it can play Super CD games, all in one console right out of the box. The other benefit of the Duo is it plays US CD games and Japanese CD games. There's no region lockout on the CD games. It only plays US hue cards unless you modify it. So you can play basically 3 of the 4 formats with a US Turbo Duo. Confused yet? We got more. Let's say you had the original setup. You had a TurboGrafx system and you add a Super CD, you add a Turbo CD attachment, and you had your original system card to play original Turbo CD games. You'd be fine. If you wanted to play a Turbo CD, Super CD game, you had to upgrade your system card to be able to do so. So you would buy a Super System 3.0 card to be able to play Super CD games in a TurboGrafx CD TurboGrafx setup, which a Duo can do right out of the box, but you need all those extra pieces to make all that work with the combination thing. And that's the limit of what you can play on a US system. Japanese system has even more things you can do. So you can stop me if I'm boring you or if I've lost you, but that is essentially your way around all the different variants of the US hardware. Yeah. So I guess let's talk Japanese systems. So I think I found out why they failed. I'm more confused now than I was before. Yeah, you got to have like a encyclopedic knowledge of what all these things, what all these variants of the system can do, what additional add-on things you got to buy to make all this magical stuff happen with the turbo setup. But it's very rewarding if you get it all set up. My recommendation is buy a US Turbo Duo, send it off, get the capacitors replaced because they all go bad and all the Duo units, US or Japanese, doesn't matter. Get it region modded so you can play US Hue cards, and you've got basically the best of the majority of all worlds that you would want to play. You can play US Hue cards, Japanese Hue cards, US Japanese CDs, all in one unit. You don't have to screw around with system cards. It's compact. It looks cool, and I think that's a good way to go. Or you can just do what Tom just said and buy a Mini, because that's a good gateway drug into the PC Engine world, and you're going to get essentially like $1,500 worth of Duo games included in one console if you really look at what it costs to buy all these damn games for that system. So I agree. I think for somebody starting out, that's a fantastic solution. If you really look at the game list on that console, it's way more extensive than you got on the whatever, NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis minis. They really put a lot on it. Thought the Saturn had issues with RAM cards. Yeah. So I guess to be brief, thinking about the Japanese systems, they're even more convoluted because you have your system card 1.0 and 2.0 that plays standard turbo CDs or PC Engine CDs. Now we're talking about. You have your Super System 3.0 card, which plays Super CDs, PC Engine CDs. And then you had more variants of system cards that only came out in Japan to be able to play even more stuff. So you have what's called the arcade card system card, which lets you play arcade CDs, which is a whole other format on top of Super CDs. And what those are is it's a RAM boost on the system card that lets you play some of the more intensive games that were only released on arcade CD. I do not have that. I would like to get an arcade card. They're not stupid expensive comparatively, but there's not really a huge selection of stuff to play on the arcade CD hardware because the only arcade CDs that are out there that aren't super text heavy are like a lot of the SNK fighter ports, which if you're going to play SNK fighters, why would you play them on the Turbo or PC Engine at this point anyway? There's so many better versions of those. You do have Strider, which is a pretty cool arcade CD exclusive. But again, there is better ways to play Strider. You can buy the PS1 compilation and you get Arcade Strider fully intact for the most part. You have the super rare Sapphire, which I think is also an arcade CD, but unless you have like $1,500, you're not going to buy that anyway. And then there's maybe like one or two other, I don't know, kind of interesting games that came out with arcade CD. But whole other card, whole other library. And then on top of that, you had the Arcade Card Pro that came after that had even more RAM on the card. And I think it works the same way. It just makes the games boot faster or something like that. So that, in a nutshell, is most of the PC Engine and TurboGrafx setups. And then, of course, you also have the Japanese-only Super Graphics, which plays its own library of 8 games that I think were released for it. And that's it, except for it can also play regular Hue cards. And those are enhanced Hue cards, they're not enhanced CDs. All these other ones were enhanced CDs. So, as you can tell, it'll give you a headache very, very quick trying to keep up with all the PC Engine and TurboGrafx stuff. Not only for the prices, but just what's involved to play some of this stuff. It's out of control. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Mini is a great way to go because it does have some of those CD games built in. You get a lot of those really expensive ones. Sapphire, I think, is on it. I mean, like I said, that's a super expensive game if you want the original. I play Sapphire on my PSP, actually. They had that Hudson Soft PC Engine compilation that had Sapphire on it for Japanese PSP. It's a great game. I'd never played it before that, but It's pretty fun. What else? Yeah, I agree. That tiny cord on the original TurboGrafx was a joke. Um, the nice thing now, I don't know if it works the same with TurboGrafx, but there's you can just go to like a computer supplier and get the same pinout for a Turbo Duo controller as an extension cord. It's just like it's a common PC extension cord. I don't know, it's a DIN cable of some sort, but essentially instead of paying like super inflated prices for a Turbo Duo extension cord, you can get the version for an actual PC that works perfectly fine. And I would assume, I don't know for sure, but I would assume you could do the same with the TurboGrafx controller. I think there would be a similar pinout PC cable that you could use as an extension cable. Do I think what killed the system was the complication or the pricing or the licensing? I think just the easiest way to put it is it was Nintendo. Nintendo had those exclusivity contracts that they signed with all the games that were developed for it at the time around 1990. So I can't remember what the limit was. I want to say it was 2 years or maybe it was even 3. That if you developed a game for the NES, you could not bring that game to another console for at least 2 years. So that's why you saw things like Batman for NES by Sunsoft, which is a great game, obviously. The Genesis was out by the time that came out or right after, but they couldn't release it on the Genesis due to that exclusivity agreement with Nintendo. So then you saw the Genesis version of it come out like at least 2 years later. I think it came out in 91 or 92. And I think Nintendo just, they really put the stake in the TurboGrafx because they had all those exclusivity rights. NEC obviously had the development power of Hudson behind it. Hudson was just the greatest gift ever to that console as far as what they put out as, I don't know if you call them first or second party games, but they had a lot of muscle with that. They had some other great developers like NEC Avenue as another second party. You had stuff like Telenet, making a lot of games for the PC Engine as well. So that obviously gave it a big boost, especially in Japan where those games were more appealing. But people wanted to play crap like Madden on TurboGrafx, and they didn't have a Madden game. So, Genesis had that locked up with EA. NES had their own sports game series that were very popular, and I think Turbo just couldn't compete on some of that. They tried to translate some of the Japanese sports titles, and they were half-assed, and it just didn't really work well because they didn't have all that marketing power behind them as some of the major forces like Madden, or even just having celebrity athletes endorse your stuff, like John Elway's quarterback for NES, stuff like that. They didn't really sign on any of those people. So NEC is obviously a huge corporation. They're still doing very well today. But video game wise, I just don't think the US offices were set up that well to be successful, or they just didn't understand the market here. I think that was the biggest problem. That's just my take. I don't know if there's any other thoughts out there. Fox, I missed your chat earlier. I need to check out High School Girl on Netflix. I do not have Netflix. I know that's ridiculous in this day and age. I probably need to get it now since I've got time to be at home and watching it, but I will look for that. If there's a physical copy of that, maybe I can pick that up. I don't mind buying stuff like that, just sight unseen, just if it sounds good. Yeah, I think for the sports game fan, the Turbo it's just not the way to go. They did get a Madden game eventually. There was John Madden's Duo Football, which I don't own. I wouldn't mind owning it, actually. It's pretty interesting. They obviously fully licensed Madden. It came out too late. It came out very late as a duo game. And they did not port over the Genesis game or anything like that. They took a very unique approach. I think Hudson Soft developed it, and they fully program their own characters and things like that, and they just use John Madden's likeness in the menu screens and whatnot. But it truly was like a Japanese developed football game. I don't think EA really had much to do with it at all, other than getting paid for it. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I'm sure there's lots of good stuff on Netflix. Um, oh yeah, there was a 3DO Madden. I forgot about that. Old Trip Hawkins. I don't know what kind of deal he swung to get that. I guess back to movies. I don't know if anyone has seen this movie. I had it. It was recommended to me by a friend, and it's not that old. I think it came out in 2017 or 2018. It's this movie called Billionaire Boys Club, and it completely flew under the radar. It has some big stars in it. It's got Taron Egerton, who's like really popular now with some of the stuff he's been doing. He was the guy that played Elton John and Rocket Man. Um, it's got the guy that was Baby Driver in Baby Driver, essentially. That guy, whatever his name is. And the reason this movie bombed so bad is it has Kevin Spacey in it. And it was like right at the peak of all the Kevin Spacey scandal. That's when this movie was scheduled to launch. And my understanding, I looked at its box office numbers, and it was like it made like $1,500 at the box office. So I think it went essentially straight to video. And I'm assuming they probably were going to push this movie pretty hard, and it just coincidentally landed with all the Kevin Spacey scandal, so they just yanked it. The reason it was recommended to me, so just to give you a little background on it, it is set in the 80s. It is based on a true story that happened in the early 80s, and it's, if you've seen Wolf on Wall Street, it's kind of a similar story. You know, it's stock trading and cocaine 80s and grandiosity and all that kind of stuff. Why my friend knew I would be interested in this movie is because there's a subplot to it that one of the ways these guys were making money was what's known as gray market, importing German cars into the U.S. and selling them at a profit in the 80s, because A, it was legal then, and B, you could make a killing because the Deutschmark in Germany was very low compared to the U.S. dollar. So they would contract with someone in Europe, buy BMWs, Mercedes, whatever, for say $25,000. They would spend like $5,000 to legalize them in the U.S. for crash standards, supposedly. Most of the time they didn't even do it. And then they would take that car that they have a total of $30,000 in it. They would sell it to a customer for $45,000. The customer would be overjoyed because in the U.S. that same car was going for $55,000, and they could have a brand new German car for less. And so why my friend, and this was actually a very small portion of the movie, but my friend knew I would love it because it has my old BMW 6 Series in as one of like the featured cars in the movie. And there's like 4 of them in the movie. So it was pretty awesome to see that. The movie is good, but I think that had Wolf on Wall Street not existed first, it would have been more popular. And then what that got me looking into is, since this was based on a true story, this is not the first story about this scenario. So there was apparently a full book written about it back in the day, and there was a made-for-TV mini-series with the same title, Billionaire Boys Club, in the late 80s. It's like from 87, and that is on YouTube. And so I ended up watching that the other night also. It's about a 3-hour mini-series. That one is not as retrospective, grandiose 80s playing up the cocaine scene in parties like the new one is, but it's more like a courtroom drama, and it is actually equally fascinating. It's probably a better movie overall. The story has a lot of variances as far as the other one, as far as how the characters play out. And in that movie, they were importing Mercedes, not old BMWs. So I didn't see any 6 Series in that one, but it's well done. I think if you've got some time on your hands, I would recommend either of those. They're a good watch if you like the 80s and greed and old cars and some decent actors probably not in their best work and all that kind of stuff. So worth checking out. Is there a worse era for cars in the 80s? Oh, you just broke my heart. I love 80s cars. It is peak rad era. Um, Turbo badging, bright colors, crazy styling, cocaine mirrors and glove boxes. What's not to love other than the pitiful performance that most of the cars had? That's the other beauty of watching these old Motor Week episodes. They tested things like the 1987 Suzuki Samurai that did 0 to 60 in 19.5 seconds. And they tested like a Chevy Suburban diesel that did it in like 20 seconds. It's pretty impressive just how slow those cars were in the 80s. But they still look cool. They look good while going slow. So, gotta love it. So, yeah, I've been rambling on about cars and movies and probably boring you to tears. So, you can tell me what you want to talk about. I forgot I have another auction I'm watching that ends tonight, but I cannot discuss the auction that I'm watching tonight because knowing some of the people in this chat, you wolves would go after it yourselves. You mean to tell me you're not a fan of the Mustang GT? With its taped off taillights, 225 horsepower V8s. Yeah, it's not $100, but I would like to get it. I will definitely share if I get it, but I got to increase my chances. I don't know who's watching this, so you never know. I'm not saying you guys would jump in and snipe me. I'm kidding, but you never know who's out there. It is for the PS1, but it is actually not a game. It is something I just learned existed for the PS1, and really wanting to get it. I think it'll be fun. So what have you guys been eating? Are you cooking for yourself? Or are you like living at the drive-thru or the grocery store? Just curious what everyone's been. I'm sure your eating habits have changed a little bit. I know mine have. I had went through a drive-thru tonight. I got a local roast beef chain. Got my fix on that. It was pretty good. The roast beef sandwiches, I should say. All right, McFly's cooking. I'm coming over to your house. I cannot cook for crap. I'm trying now. I'm not good. Yikes. That is a serious grocery bill. Hopefully stocked up. I'm trying to be smart about when to go to the grocery store just to avoid peak crowds and things like that, and I totally failed last weekend. I went kind of late Saturday night towards when they closed, and I thought that would be a great time to go hit the store just to avoid potentially having to wait outside if they were at their limit on how many people can be inside. And totally forgot that the grocery stores are closed on Easter, and so there was just like masses of people trying to stock up with stuff even late at night just because they knew the grocery stores were going to be closed on Easter, and they're probably all buying stuff for Easter meals and whatnot. So that was a bummer. But I got some stuff. I'm probably going to have to go again tomorrow and get some more stuff. Yeah, I'm still not seeing toilet paper anywhere. I've got a decent supply left, but I didn't hoard any, obviously, so I just have whatever I had laying around before all this started. Yeah, I've heard that from some other people that have gone on just random times, and sometimes it's just dead as a doornail. It's the perfect time to go shop. So you never know. All right, I'm gonna go grab a beer. You guys chat amongst yourselves or come up with some fantastic topic for us to discuss, and I will be back shortly. So Tom is Tom. I'm surprised you're even on here. I'm glad you are, but if you got a brand new game console to play, I totally understand. I would be playing that myself. There's one thing I think is a total bummer about the PC Engine Mini. I think it's awesome that it has Snatcher on it. And my understanding is, well, I know the Japanese version that has it in Japanese. And I think the US TurboGrafx, they still included Snatcher, which is weird because it's fully in Japanese on there. So obviously that version never got a US translation back in the day for that system, but it would have been really cool if they could have made that happen because I think that would have been a big system seller right there. Oh, he's playing his Resident Evil. I figured he'd be playing the new console. Yeah, I think everybody chatting in here actually has channels on here with videos. So if you haven't, definitely check out McFly and Tom. They've got some great videos, a lot of good content. I think I had some other people in here earlier that are also fellow YouTubers to check out. So hopefully we can add some people to your subscribe list tonight. If you're not familiar with everybody in here. Oh, I will say, like, Snatcher, the Sega CD translation, the voice acting is pretty good, I think. If you compare it to what else was out there at the time, I think they did a pretty nice job on it. Especially if you stack it against, like, Space Adventure for Sega CD, which has its pros and cons. It came out after Snatcher, so the precedent had kind of already been set, and then the voice acting is nowhere near as good. It's a very similar style of game. It's obviously a digital comic also. It's got good source material. You know, it's a classic anime series, in my understanding, Cobra, that it's based on. But I guess one thing with why Space Adventure is not only the voice acting is not as good, but even the game itself just graphically isn't as interesting as Snatcher or the story is because it was originally a PC Engine CD that came out in like 91. So it really was an older game that just happened to get a Sega CD release 4 years later in 1995. So I totally get it. I still played it all the way through. It wasn't as memorable, but I enjoyed it. I was glad just to get through the whole game. It doesn't have me rushing back to play it, though, like Snatcher did. Yeah, Emperor Fox was in here earlier. He's got great videos, too. I don't know if he's still in here or not. It's really weird. I can't see who's in the chat unless you guys are chatting. I can see I've got 6 people currently logged in, but unless you're saying anything, I don't know if you're in here. So I've got maybe 3 people actively chatting of those 6. I'm sure the rest are just spies or voyeurs, whatever. Have I ever thought of a live podcast with local or even non-local collectors to discuss things? Maybe a 30-minute spotlight on each individual. I would love to do something like that. I'm just not really set up with the technology to pull that off. But I think me and Tom have talked about doing something together. You know, he lives very close by, so maybe when all this crap is over, we can get something together. I don't really know what that would look like, but I guess like my issue with podcasts, or what I consider like a YouTube podcast, is the majority of them are just guys that sit in front of their computer and read press releases or stuff that's posted readily available online and then share an opinion on it. And I mean, I guess that's maybe what people are looking for, but I generally get bored to tears by that, especially if they don't have enough flavor of their own to bring it. And maybe there are some people that are good at that, but I just don't know if I just feel like I would turn off people if I did something like that to that effect. I would have to make it my own before I would go after something like that. But I'm definitely up for doing like a joint pickups video or tours or whatever. I don't know. Come up with some ideas. Yeah, I'd definitely be down with doing some game store history if anyone would be interested in that. I think you definitely have some good stories to tell. You were there more full time than I was, so you got to see a lot more chicanery than I did. Yeah, Tom and I have gone game hunting together, and I now have a store I will never ever go to ever again. Thanks to my day with Tom, no fault of his, but just due to some idiocy that took place. So it's a shame they lost 2 customers that day because I don't think he'll ever go back there either, and it was his first time going. Oh yeah, if you didn't know, Emperor Fox, definitely check his videos out. He's got some really great pickups videos. He's really big into RPGs. I don't know if he's still here or not. He can speak for himself if he is, but really big into RPGs. He plays for a lot of different systems. He's got a big portable games interest like I do, so he's really big into the original Game Boy. I think that's one of the big things he's picking up. So yeah, Fox is good people. I haven't met him personally. I'd like to. I think he's somewhere in Colorado, so maybe we can get together someday. Yeah, McFly, like, come on down to Missouri. We'll party. We've got, maybe we'll have cons again someday. They have canceled our game con for this year, obviously, just due to everything going on. It wasn't even scheduled until like August, but I get it with the amount of time it takes to put something together, plus just the uncertainty. So, but we did have the mini con in February, right before all this crap started, which was perfect. Because that may end up being the only con I go to for the whole year with the way things are going. And maybe we'll do another one of those next winter. I think that would be really cool. I had a really good time at that. It was, just a low profile version with not a bunch of guests and all that, but a lot of just good trading going on and a lot of good vendors, stuff like that. So it was a good time. Yeah, I agree, Lenny. I think that once you've got advertisers to please, and your content takes a whole different toll of what you're trying to get out of it to stay relevant and keep people watching. So when you're like like me and most of the rest of the people here, it's just sharing your passion and what's going on. So I thought it was funny. I posted, or we did the stream last week, and I had some really great participation. I was honestly surprised how many of you guys jumped in, and who all was able to join, and then just even some new people that I really hadn't interacted with that joined, that added some really good flavor to the stream. So I decided to do another one tonight. I don't know if I'll keep doing these. Maybe Friday nights if we're all still stuck at home for a while. That's a good time. I was trying to plan out the start time tonight because I was like, well, I mean, I'm on Central Time. I don't know what time everybody else is going to be at their computers if they're sitting around tonight. So I shot for 9 o'clock just because I figured that'd be a good balance between East and West Coast time. So maybe get some global people in here. I don't know. Had somebody that said they were from France before that was on, but then they never really talked. So it was kind of weird. Yeah, I agree. The mini-con was golden. So I think I got like 40 magazines at the con, and I have now read through all of them. So now I need another con to stock up on old video game magazines. That's some more stuff to read. The other thing that was just blew my mind at that con was getting some Neo Geo CD games in person, because all my other Neo Geo CD stuff I bought has been online only and mostly from Japan. So it was definitely awesome to do some trading in person for that stuff. Yeah, I think it's a kind of a blessing and a curse that me and most of the people in this group that are on here we're probably a little bit more in-depth knowledgeable about some of the history on some of the stuff that we present. And I guess it just probably turns off the casual gamers that watch YouTube because, I mean, you heard how convoluted it is to get into turbo collecting or PC Engine collecting. So I start rambling on about that. It's like, oh, there goes 10 subscribers. Like, I ain't got time for that shit. They'll just watch or just buy an NES Classic Mini and be good to go for 90% of the gaming they need to do. Oh, what other channels? Who else do we need to pimp tonight? Who else do we that runs in our crew? I'm trying to think who was on here last week that isn't in here right now. We had oh jeez, drawing a blank. McFly and Tom, you guys can help me out. Oh, whatever, McFly. You've got like hella Sega Genesis knowledge and other stuff, so. Oh, I know somebody you can subscribe to. He was in the chat last week. Is Mr. Dude? I think it's like Mr. Dude 206 or something like that. He's up in Washington State. He's a cool guy. He's got a lot of arcade knowledge and CRTs he's really into, and he's got a pretty good import collection and a lot of different systems he collects for. So he does some pretty free-flowing stuff. Yep, see, McFly was right on it. He brought up Mr. Dude too. Our reclusive guest who I invited did not even reply to me, so I didn't really think he was going to join, but I figured I would try. He might be working early tomorrow too. Yeah, Mr. Dude's into old 90s Japanese cars, which is pretty cool. Thank you for bringing that up, CRT Cade. I have still not checked out that channel. I know you mentioned that to me before. I'm going to subscribe to that right now. See, look at that. We're boosting people that aren't even here. Maybe I am on that channel. Let me look. Nope, I'm not. All right, I am subscribing to that right now. Just blind subscribing. I don't know. That is a kind of a Popu channel. They do have 2,500 subscribers. That's way more than our crew. Yeah, TG Appileus is awesome. That's another good one to call out. Lenny, you can check his stuff out too. So he hasn't really made any videos lately. He's been kind of flying low profile. But TG Appileus is also a big RPG fan. He's really into the Saturn, especially, I would say. He is also a good expert on like fan translations. That's something I haven't really got into. I don't fully understand it. I guess you like burn the fan train. I don't know if you swap the disc or if you just play it off a burn disc. I don't fully understand. I know he always has like the official Japanese, say Sega Saturn RPG in Japanese, and then he has a way to play a fan translated version. I don't know if that's done through like a RAM cart or like cheat code, or I don't understand. Somebody who's more knowledgeable can explain it, but he does a lot of that kind of stuff, and he streams too. A lot of game content, some videos he makes. Completionist. I don't know if I've checked his stuff out. I'm down with PCB collectors. So yeah, I've got a few friends like that. I had a friend that was in here last week that's really big on stuff having to be like dead mint or it is not allowed in the collection, which I can respect, but it's kind of funny, I guess. Like, I want my stuff to be complete, but it does. I mean, if it's got a wrinkle or whatever, I'm not gonna freak out about it. Especially if it's between owning the game or not owning the game. If I can't find it otherwise, I'll do that. And if I upgrade down the road, then that's just the cherry on the sundae. But I respect people that have standards and what they will accept in their collection. So I agree. There's some of that going on. Yep, Derek H. That's another good channel. So hopefully you're getting some ideas here. But yeah, we probably shouted out about 10 channels here worth checking out. I guess, if we could talk, you brought up PCB collectors, so I'm trying to get back into the forums at KLOV, Clav, if you want to go with the casual name, Killer List of Video Games or whatever it is. It's really where like all the just super hardcore arcade collectors seem to congregate. Now, there's probably a few other forums and places like that, but I'm kind of a crappy participant because I don't really join in on their discussions and high score chats and stuff like that. I'm really just there for the bargains. But it's a great place to buy arcade boards, and there's a lot of just super knowledgeable sellers. Like, you can just pick up on it instantly. There's just people that have really been in the scene for a long time that have good deals on JAMA boards. And there's also a lot of operators that post on there, so you can find people that have had routes for 20, 30, 40 years that are in the business still. And everyone seems to just really have a good reputation, which builds good trust. So that's one thing I've always had a problem with, like buying games and arcade boards off forums, is you never really know what you're dealing with. This forum has been around for so long that these people, like, you can figure out real quick who the reputable ones are because they've been doing this for so long and they've got a really good reputation on the board. And I think within the last week, I've really been participating more in the sales forum because there seems to be some people that are starting to dump their collections of arcade boards, or at least portions of it, just to get a spike of cash, because a typical board's probably at least $100, just depending on what it is. So I've been watching quite a bit of stuff on there right now. There's some really tempting stuff out there. I got a board in today that I'm not going to fully reveal because I want to put it in my next video, but it's a cool, very obscure arcade game by Konami from 1987. And I've got some conversation going on right now with a couple people on there about maybe doing some negotiation. So I might be getting some more boards here soon. But the people on there are super cool. Like, they know that they're not going to get eBay prices for their stuff. They sell it below eBay. They usually ship for free or at a very affordable rate. And the packaging jobs I've gotten on the boards I bought that way are so much better than the people on eBay that are so just uninformed of what it takes to ship a very delicate electronic circuit board that can have all kinds of issues if it has static, getting involved, or just very poor packaging and handling. So highly recommend that if you guys haven't checked that out. If you're looking to get into arcade board collecting or even just asking questions to get into that scene, the KLOV forums are pretty awesome. All right, we got some chat going on here. Let's see. So, what's my opinion on sealed game collectors? Is it on the rise or is it ridiculous? I have always thought sealed game collecting is completely ridiculous, but you do you if that's what you're into. I want to play my stuff, and then I always get in a conundrum if I get a sealed game. If I already have the game open, I don't want the sealed game at all, especially if I can make money on it. I'll just sell it. If I get a sealed game that is older and I don't have it otherwise, then I hang on to it until I can get an open copy that I can play, and then I sell the sealed one. I have a few sealed NES games that I don't want to sell just because I think it's pretty cool to have sealed NES games at this point. But I don't know. Especially if you get into grading sealed games, I just think that whole scene is out of control. It's not something I'm going to participate in. JR Man 331. I have not checked out that channel either, so I'll see how that looks. Another good recommendation. Yeah, TG Hepalaeus is another thing about him. He just to describe his channel, he also is a huge book collector, and these are like books of the learned type. He must be a smart feller, some of the stuff he's reading, because it's above my head, but I think he's big into like Greek and Egyptian mythology, or not mythology, but whatever, like Greek and Egyptian history and stuff like that, and stuff I was super into, like when I was, like junior high. Like I was all into Egyptian culture, and then it just kind of slipped away, but I think it's pretty cool. He can definitely inform me on some of those topics, because it's not something I've gotten into lately. Used to watch John's Arcade channel, but he doesn't post anymore, just does a podcast. Not familiar with that one either. Found a site to recap Chassis. Okay, well, that's cool. Definitely interested in hearing about that offline. Don't have the knowledge or patience to get an arcade machine. Love looking at the Claw forums. If you could get a Tron. Yeah, it's kind of like, it goes back to our PC Engine TurboGrafx discussion earlier. There's there's like a level of knowledge that you can have just to have enough to be dangerous, to like know what you need to do to be playable and functional. And that's kind of where I am with like arcade stuff. Like I can find my way around a JAMA cabinet and know like all the key things that make it function. But then there's just like the people you meet on this forum that have been in it since day one, and they can fix everything. They can tell you what's wrong with everything. They can judge everything. It's really impressive, the level of knowledge. And I know I will never be at that level, nor do I have the time or energy to invest to get to that level. But it gets hardcore very, very fast if you start talking arcade scene. And then the other side of that is there's just a lot of, I'm not saying they're on Clav, but I just think if you look at just all the people that are into arcade stuff just to make a fast buck, they have no damn clue what they're talking about. People that are building MAME cabinets and flipping them and just, slapping stuff together and giving it a new T-molding and a paint job, and then trying to get premium prices on Craigslist or eBay or whatever. You really got to watch out for a lot of those types of people, and it's unfortunate. They kind of prey. They may not know any better themselves. I guess I give them credit for that. Like if they're doing it innocently, but I also think there's people that prey on people that are just trying to get into arcade games, and they see this shiny object and they just think, that's a good place to start, and then they realize like once they start becoming a little more knowledgeable, they got totally screwed. So I think just it's a rewarding scene to get into, but it's also a very steep learning curve, and it also is there's so many different levels of elitism and expense involved if you really want to get super into it. But I like where I'm at with my arcade collection. I mean, I think just having the 2 candy cabs really gives me the functionality to be able to play a huge selection of games that I want to play. And so I can really focus on just getting boards at this point. But I don't know. That's just a little bit of my 2 cents on arcade scene and kind of what's going on. Yeah, McFly doesn't get the sealed game collecting either. I agree. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if it's your favorite series and you want to own your player's copy, and then you also want to own a sealed copy just because you really like that series, like if you're a giant Castlevania fan or something like that, and you want to have all the Castlevania games sealed, more power to you. I think that makes it a pretty cool collection. But doing that in lieu of even playing the games, I don't get it. And I think there's a lot of that going on. Lenny's an unsealed collector that doesn't play them. Just enjoys having them. I get it. Yeah, I mean, I've got more time than usual. I think it's probably the best way to put it. More time than usual to play my games right now. But it's not like I've got just unlimited time to play my games right now, which some people do, which is pretty cool. I mean, I think it's a good time to get caught up on some of the backlog. I'm just trying to kind of pick my battles as far as what I'm playing right now. Like, if I can just pull 3 or 4 NES games off the shelf and play them for an evening like I did this week, I think that worked out really well. I didn't have a huge time commitment in any of them, and it's not like I was writing down passwords or saving games to come back to. It was just kind of a one and done. I played it through a little bit, and that was that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now, is just pick up and play type stuff. And I do have a few games that I'm working through, like with a little bit more investment, but not as heavy as some of the other stuff. John has a home arcade and he used to repair his stuff and restore cabinets. There's all troubleshooting, watching him get frustrated was half the fun. Yeah, I think, I guess kind of as a build on that point, like there are people that call themselves arcade repair, and I'm not calling this guy out. I'm just saying this is just an example, but there's people that like repair, but they get so over their heads with work, or just in over their head with work, and they've taken on too many jobs, and then the next thing you know, it's taken them 2 or 3 years to get stuff fixed, if at all. And then they'll go through a period where they're just not accepting work at all because they realize how overwhelmed they are. I mean, it's really challenging to know who to send your stuff to if you can't do it yourself, which with arcade stuff, I really can't do much myself yet. There's also people that kind of like float in and out of the repair scene. So maybe it's somebody that does it on the side when their main gig is slow or whatever, and then they get busy with that again, and it's like it's all off the plate. They don't want to do it. So arcade repair is tough. And, for me personally, I've got a couple cabinets that need some monitor work, and another one that needs some sound work on the cabinet itself. And those are things that I can't ship off. I need somebody local, and frankly, I really don't even want to like load it up and take it somewhere. I need someone, if in perfect world, I need someone that can do like a house call and fix some of that stuff. So, but if you find a good arcade repair person, you really want to hang on to them because they're tough to find. I've got a couple contacts. I've got a place in mid-Missouri that I can send boards to. They're not the cheapest, but they do good work, and they keep up with you with the communication. So, and I like their turnaround time. So a little bit more about that. What else we got out there? PS3 and 360 games are still sealed, not because I'm collecting, because I bought the game new at 60. Just had to have them at launch, still haven't opened them. Yeah, I've got some pile of shame like that too. Who would love to have a pinball table? Yes, definitely. I don't really know where I would put it right now. And then pinball repair, that's like a whole other level than arcade repair. And let's just be real, like a vintage pinball table will always be broken in some way. And it's sad, but it's true. So there's just so much maintenance to keep up with. There's like unobtainable parts or repro parts that just aren't quite the same, and you got to be super dedicated to own your own pinball machine. And then you can chance it with a newer pinball machine, or even buy, if you're really balling, just buy a brand new pinball table, but you're going to run the same thing down the road. It's going to need maintenance. So it's tough to know what to go with. But yeah, I've got a buddy that's got a few pinballs. And actually, I got a couple of people I know that have pinballs at home. So my problem is my dream pinball table is Cactus Canyon, and last I checked, it's like a $13,000 or $14,000 table, and that is most definitely not going to happen. I would definitely buy another toy car, to drive before I would spend that kind of money on a pinball table, much as I would like to have it. Kyle is a Castlevania fan. Yes, I'm well aware. And you should start collecting them all sealed. What else? Yeah, definitely agree on the time thing. Tom wants the Willy Wonka pinball. I don't think I've played that one yet. Is that a Stern or is that one of the other companies? I know that's one of the newer ones. Yeah, McFly and I went to Indiana. Northern Indiana has a badass pinball arcade. I wish I'd taken a video of it. That was a mistake. I'm trying to video like all the cool arcades and pinball places I go to whenever I travel, just to have some documentation of what they had in at a given time, and then especially if I go back another time, I can see if anything changed. But McFly and I had a great time checking that place out, and they had Cactus Canyon, which is again my favorite ever pinball. So I was hooked. It didn't even really matter what else they had because they had Cactus Canyon. The only two other Cactus Canyons I'm aware of that are on active play is the Pinball Hall of Fame in Vegas has it, which I played it there several times, and they've done the full the LCD conversion or whatever, so all the graphics are run by LCDs so that you don't have to worry about replacing bulbs and you get a little bit fancier display. I'm kind of mixed on how I feel about that, but I mean, it was neat to play it. And then there's an arcade in Portland, Oregon that I love called Quarter World, and it's in an old movie theater. So it's got a really cool layout. It's got a bar, and it's got two main rooms that I assume were once the two separate screens. And one is more like the over 18 group with like a different bar and like some of the racier games. So they have stuff like Gal's Panic in there, which is kind of funny if you've never played it. And then the other room is just more like the family-friendly room. There's a bar in there too. There's like a party room, and then they have like a bigger selection of games on that side. And that's where most of the pinball is, and they have Cactus Canyon there. And why I'm bringing up Quarter World is with all the stuff going on right now and people obviously not being able to go to arcades, Quarter World had a really good idea, is that if you live in the Portland area right now, you can arrange with them to do like a 1 month lease on anything that's in their selection. So if you're all tied up at home for a month, you could have them bring you Cactus Canyon and just play it for a month, and then they pick it up and you could rent it for the month. And if that was here in town, you damn well bet I would have a Cactus Canyon in the house if it wasn't too expensive, just for a short-term use, and I would play the hell out of it right now. So really jealous of all those people in Portland that can take advantage of it. I don't know how well the promotion's going, but I think it's cool for two reasons. Number one, that you could put something like that in your house for a temporary low-risk reason to play while we're all bored. And then also really good for the smart move for the arcade, because they're still finding a way to bring in revenue, even though they can't operate just as they normally would. So maybe more arcades should look into stuff like that. I mean, obviously the risk is that somebody destroys the hell out of your machine, or it's difficult to get it back. But I assume they have some of that written into some type of contract, so, or maybe a deposit, or however they worked it out. But really cool that they're offering that. So anyways, just rounding that back up. The only three places that I played Cactus Canyon live in recent years, at least, is this place in Portland called Quarter World, Pinball Hall of Fame, and then the arcade that, or pinball place that McFly took me to in Indiana that I can't remember the name of, but you're welcome to chat that in if you want to share that. What else? Just sharing some of the pinball stuff we're playing. Yeah, Twilight Zone is. I just think it's because so many people have played it. I mean, it was such a huge hit. It's kind of like Addams Family. You know, it was such a big selling game. So probably a lot of nostalgia that goes on with it. I think it's an okay game. Okay, Jersey Jack was the Willy Wonka. Yeah, I played some of the Jersey Jack tables. I haven't played that one. For my locals, I wonder if you guys have ever been to the Waiting Room. It's up on St. Charles Rock Road in a really dumpy old plaza from back in like the 70s, it looks like. It's mostly a bar, but it has a really nice pinball selection in there. And they have a couple arcade games, but it's mostly pinball. And they're affiliated with the Silver Ballroom, which is in the city. And I think it's the same. It's not the same owner of both bars, but it's the same pinball operator of both. So I think he swaps games between the two bars. I had a good day there. Just checking out some of the stuff they had. It's a pretty neat place. Buddy has Wizard of Oz, Diner, Aerosmith, and Kiss pinballs. That's cool. That's funny because my local friend has Diner in his basement too, which is a pretty neat game. Yeah, another great place, CP Pinball in Illinois. So for again my locals, if you have not been to CP Pinball, you definitely need to go. Maybe we should organize a trip out there. I think that'd be fun once this is all over. So CP Pinball is essentially a guy's private collection of pinball stuff, but he opens it up to the public. I don't know if he still does Friday and Saturday nights, or maybe he does Saturday and Sunday. He only offers like a couple days a week. It's not like a full-time business. And they're in these like two giant industrial sheds essentially behind his house. And you pay, I don't know, it's $20 or whatever, and it's infinite play for the 6 or 7 hours he's open. You can play as much as you want. It's a little bit of a trek. It's over in it's a city called South Roxana, Illinois. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere near Alton, I guess would be the closest city. And I don't know, it probably takes about an hour and 20 minutes or so to get over there, for me at least. But I haven't been in a couple years. I know people that still go. I think they do tournaments now too. I'm not positive about that. Super nice people run it. Actually, the owner of it, I used to see at arcade auctions back in the day when I used to go to arcade auctions when we had those in town. And I mean, it's super low key. It's even BYOB. So if you have fridges set up in there, you want to bring a 6-pack and drink some beer and play some pinball, they're totally cool with that. They're not looking to make money on alcohol. I don't know if they have food now or not. Maybe they do a food truck or something, but it's worth the trek over there. He's got probably like 50 tables, maybe more. I'm not good at counting when I just see a bunch of pinball all at one place. I think it's cppinball.com. This is the website. You can check out the game list there and stuff like that. But if you guys haven't been over there, we should definitely go for my locals. He's got some of the newer stuff. When was the last time you went to CP? I'm curious. I haven't been over there, and I'm thinking about it now. It's probably been 3 or 4 years. It always slips off my radar that it exists because it's just so off the beaten path. Awesome. Yeah, we should head on over there. I'd like to go. And like I said, I know we changed his operating hours, so I'm not sure if he's only doing Saturday and Sunday or what. It seemed like I used to always go on Friday nights, and I can't remember if he stopped doing Fridays for a while or maybe he is again. But it's a cool place for sure. Wish it was closer to the St. Louis, to the core. Oh, Wizard World. Okay, that was the name of the place in Indiana. Yeah, I totally forgot that. You said Wizard World earlier, and I was thinking it was the name of a pinball table. So that's his private collection. He's got storage with another 100 or so tables. That's awesome. Yeah, the guy that runs CP, like, I think everything that's in there is for sale if you ask. Maybe that may not be accurate, but I know he's got a few games usually that he'll post on the website that are for sale, or if you just go in there, you might see a sign on something. And he's just doing it the way all of us game collectors do it. If he's selling something, he's just using the money to fund more pinball. So it's all for the greater good. If he sells something off, he's going to buy something fancier with the money that he gets for it. And that's how he tends to rotate stuff in and out. I can't remember if the guy's an operator on the side too or not. He might be. He might operate a few bars in town, or not run them, but like run the game route for a few bars. I'm not sure. Yeah, he usually has like a main machine set up, and then maybe a couple consoles for people that just don't want to play pinball. So I guess he had a Genesis set up with Herzog's Y. That's pretty funny. That is not exactly like a pick up and play type of game for somebody that's just curious, walking by a Sega Genesis. I can't imagine just jumping into Herzog's Y, but it's a fun game. Kind of wondering what other like nationwide pinball places I need to hit. I know there's a lot of pinball cons where they'll just bring in a bunch of games to a hotel or whatever for a day or two. And they come and they go, but I really like hitting some of the permanent pinball places as much as I can. Another great pinball place I did do a video on. It's more in like central Illinois. It's probably about 3 hours away, 2.5 hours away from St. Louis. It's a place called crap. I can't remember the name of the arcade, but it's in a city called McLean, Illinois. And it's in like an old town square. It's really awesome. So there's like one building that's all arcade games. It was an old retail storefront in a, like, say, 1920s era downtown. And he's got a bunch of arcade games in there. He rotates some of those out. And the building next to that is his pinball building, which is an old vintage bank that has been turned into a pinball spot. So really cool, like antique wooden floors, cool scenery. It's off the beaten path. I mean, it's actually real close to Highway 55, but it's like once you pull off the highway, you gotta do some turns down side streets, and you're like in the middle of nowhere to go to this place. And it's really strange because like just I think all he does is unlocks the building in the morning and locks it at night because there's typically no staff ever working in there. They just let you come and go as you please, and they have change machines. So definitely a neat place. I think he's got another place in a city called Atlanta, Illinois, that's not that far away. I just haven't been to it because it doesn't operate the same hours. It's got very limited availability, but I'd like to check out that spot too and see what he's got there. Illinois just seems to be like a hot spot for pinball. I don't really know why. There seems to be there's stuff in Chicago too that I've been to. If you ever get up to Chicago, there's a great pinball spot. They have some arcade games too, but it's mostly pinball. It's called Logan. Logan Hardware. And the history behind that is it used to be in a location in one spot down the street that actually was an old historic hardware store, and then they opened up as a record store, so that's how I found out about it, with a side business in the back of an old arcade and pinball spot. So you could shop in the record store as usual, and then if you wanted to, you could like pay $10 and the guy would just turn you loose in his back room and you could play all his pinball. And priorities have changed, and so now I guess with the rise of pinball, he has closed the record store. He's moved the pinball down the street. You can still see the original Logan Hardware from that location, and now it's got 2 giant rooms. There's way more floor space. It's packed with arcade games and pinball tables. He's got all the newest, craziest stuff. He's got a lot of great retro pinball tables, and then he's operating a full bar in this place, which the other location didn't have. So it's kind of like a neighborhood watering hole with like a killer pinball selection. It's a really fun time. I didn't get to go on my last trip to Chicago, but I've been a couple times, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely recommend that if you ever get up to Chicago. What if I started documenting game stores that I visit when I travel? Yeah, I've thought about that. I feel like a lot of times game store owners get a little squirrely when you want to film stuff unless you really clarify why in some cases. And then you've also got other game stores that are like YouTube celebrities of their own, and they're just like, oh yeah, come film me because it's good for my channel and it'll give me more hits and more profit and all that. So I kind of toe the line on like, I'm not really there to shill for them. I want them to do well, but I also am not an advertising agent for them. So, and I'm definitely not going to like run around with a secret camera like filming all the stuff in the store. Cause I mean, I like watching some of those videos, but at the same time, I just don't think that's me. I'm not going to put the effort forth, and I just think it's a little creepy. That's my personal opinion. So I've thought about it. If I saw like a really neat off the path game store and I wanted to help the business out and I thought it would make a good video, I wouldn't be opposed to the idea, but I would definitely clear it with the owner and make sure all that's good on their end before running around with a camera, because I see a lot of that going on, and I just think that it's a little shady if you don't let the owner know what's going on, and if they're not on board and they don't get why. And at the end of the day, like, I mean, I'm there to buy games, so I'm not trying to be distracted by running around with my camera. And I think maybe other people have different motives to go into those businesses because maybe it's good for the hits or whatever. But arcades are a little different because, really I'm just looking to document like what does that place have in stock at a given point in time. And it's helpful for me because if I want to go visit the place a few years later, maybe I see how it evolved over time. They get some different stuff in, or I think it's helpful for just, sharing amongst the world. Like, hey, if you were to visit this city, here's some cool stuff you could play if you were in town. So it's kind of my approach with arcades. And then ultimately I'm playing games for hours while I'm there as it is. So yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think you got to have that blessing if you're going to run around and record stores. I just see so much of that though on here where I don't know, like I think like, not to call anybody out because I definitely watch a lot of them, but you see all these guys in Japan filming videos at hard offs, and I mean it's a little like I'm not trying to knock it because I made a hard off video of my own when I was in California, but I think a lot of it is probably frowned on by the store if they really knew what they were up to. I did give the guy at Hard Off in California a heads up. Hey, do you mind if I just film what's in this aisle of games and whatever? And I told him I wasn't going to be there long. I won't interrupt with any customers. And he's like, I don't give a shit. So I think it just depends on who you're dealing with. But I know, especially in Japan, like, a lot of stores post no video, no photos signs on their business anyway. So I think it's a cultural thing that you're kind of violating if you run around and you just got to film all this stuff that definitely is interesting and is great for people like me that haven't made it to Japan. You want to see what it's like to shop in some of those stores, but at the same time, I think it's a thin line just with the retailer and what they want and what you want. So just some thoughts on that. John's Arcade Daniel did a lot of arcade on the road videos, Japan arcades, Galloping Ghost. Yeah, that's cool. I know there's a lot of good arcade footage out there. I mean, like I did a Galloping Ghost video a few months ago, and I almost debated like even bothering because I think there's a lot of content out there on that arcade. It's one of the best known arcades in the world, but ultimately I thought it would. I thought the footage turned out pretty good because I ended up like I was there on a business trip and I went on. I think it was a Tuesday night, and there was hardly anybody in there, which is so rare because if you go there on a Friday or Saturday, the place is jammed. So I just saw it as a good opportunity to capture as much as I could of all the games in there. with very low traffic in there, and I think that that's a view that you don't typically see when you visit Galloping Ghost, because they do a really good business there. I don't know if anybody else here has been to Galloping Ghost, but it's pretty amazing. There's like two minor complaints I have about Galloping Ghost. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but I think that I think they've almost gotten too big, because some of the cabinets have some monitors or joystick issues that they just can't get around to fix them all. And they do a lot of great maintenance work. They actually have their own maintenance workshop right down the street to cut down on some of those costs. But I think that, you know, it's really disappointing to get to the arcade, and like, I'll give a perfect example. Like, they had Phelios, the arcade version, which is a game that I love on the Genesis. It's one of my absolute favorite Genesis shooters, and they had the arcade version, which I'd never played before, and it's on this just busted ass monitor, and it was like so hard to even see what was going on in the game, and it was just such a letdown, because I mean, that's a very expensive arcade board. It's very obscure, and it's being put in a non-ideal cabinet. But I totally get it, and I mean, I have no doubt in my mind they'll fix it eventually. It's just, you see some of that, and then I think the other thing is, because they are trying to offer so many games in one site, they do a lot of building their cabinets into multi-cabs. So they do always have genuine arcade boards, I will say that. But what they'll do is they'll jam like 4 shooters or 2 shooters into one stand-up cabinet, and then just put a switcher on there so that you can switch between the cabinet, or switch between the boards. But then you don't get the original marquee, and then they just like Photoshop a marquee or whatever so that it represents the artwork. And again, I totally get it. I mean, I know they're trying to get a lot of games, a variety in that location, but just takes away from some of the authenticity of the experience. And I wish they had more candy cabs. I think that would be the other thing. If they got more candy cabs, you wouldn't even need marquees. You'd have wonderful cabinets to play on with bigger screens. It'd be great for all those old shooters. So I know those are dry, but if they could locate a bunch of those, that'd be awesome. Tom, thanks for joining. Have a good night. Thanks for hanging out with us. Yeah, it's mind-numbing to think how much could break if you were an arcade operator, just running an arcade in a day, for sure. I fully respect the arcade business. I have no desire to get into it, because it's just so much work that goes on behind the scenes. And if you really want to make money, you got to be able to do your own work. I mean, you got people that depend on route operate. Like, if you're a bar owner, you don't know how to fix a damn pinball table. Like, you contract with a route runner, they bring you stuff. They take a huge cut of the profits. If something breaks, yes, you can call them, but you might be down for a day or two. That's just, I wouldn't be able to operate like that. So maybe if I had the ultimate tech guru on staff who was dependable, who could fix stuff the right way the first time and do it efficiently, that'd be a fun business to get into, but I don't want to be that person. I think the other fun thing is, like, if you visit the Pinball Hall of Fame in Vegas, the owner of that whole collection is constant. Like, he just hangs out in the back of the place just working on stuff. I've been to that arcade probably 5 or 6 times, and every time, doesn't matter what time of day I visit, like if I go morning, afternoon, night, whatever, he's always in the back disassembling some pinball table and working on something or other. And even then, he's probably still got 100 tables on the floor that need something done to them. So it's just a never-ending, thankless job for the reward you get at the end to be able to maintain and operate a arcade or pinball place. But it'd be a fun hobby to be into if you could do it full time. All right, I've been rambling for a while again. What else is going on? Need some more topics. Surely we got some more people in here. I see, like, the count jumping up and down. I don't know who else is in here that hasn't identified themselves. Let you join in. Talking arcades and maintenance and all that kind of fun stuff. I think, just going back to discussion around like my travel and the ability to see all these cool places, which is definitely a job perk. Being able to be out in these different places and checking out different arcades, game stores, and stuff when I'm able. I don't know what travel is going to look like in my job in the future. I feel like we are going to rapidly shift. Not just my company, but I think all corporations are going to look at how often people are being sent on the road, how much work can be done virtually, what work even needs to be done in the future, how does it need to be completed. I think all those things are rapidly changing with everything going on because they're seeing how effective things can be get done with strictly virtual work or remote type things. So it's hard to say. I know I would like to travel, be it for personal or work travel. I'd like to be back out and about. So for stuff I buy for older systems when I travel, do I only buy if I get a good deal and not inflated prices? It's complicated. So I would say if it's something that, like, let me give you an example. So the average thing I would buy, I would say, yeah, I'm only buying if it's a good deal. Because why would I rush to buy it in the store if I can just get it on eBay for less or the same price or whatever? I don't really give stuff like that a priority when I'm out and about. I'm not saying I'm getting like a screaming bargain, but there should be at least some kind of discount involved if I'm buying it in person. And then you also have to factor in that you're paying tax for it because if you buy stuff on eBay in Missouri, you don't have to pay tax. So at least so far, cross your fingers on that. But that's not always a hard and fast rule. So let's say I see a complete in the box NES game that I don't have and it's staring me in the face and I can get it on eBay for the same price or whatever, but it's staring me in the face and I never even thought maybe to buy it. Those are the types of things that I'll pull out my wallet if it's something that interests me. So just kind of depends. It's a good question, but I would say, like most of the time if I'm buying in person, it's because I'm getting a pretty good deal. And, I always look for stuff I can trade too. So even if it's something I don't immediately need, I might trade it off and then get something I want on eBay or whatever with the proceeds from that. So yeah, I agree. I think business in general is going to be very interesting in the future. I'm trying to be as open-minded as possible. I mean, I really am. Like if there's new technology to be able to interact or communicate in a work setting, I want to be the first to learn about it because I don't want to be left behind on anything that's going on. So been doing a lot of just self-development and staying on top of what's going on with communication right now because that's rapidly changing too. Because I think those are skill sets that are going to be very important with work being done in very different ways in our future. Because frankly, I don't want to be an Uber driver or whatever instead. So no knock. So if I have any Uber drivers in here, but I'm just saying like I want to be able to stay on top of my game. Going back to movies for a second, did everyone hear that Brian Dennehy passed away yesterday? It wasn't COVID related; it was just old age. But one of my favorite movies is Tommy Boy, and I thought Brian Dennehy was awesome as Chris Farley's dad for the very short role he plays in that movie. It's probably not his most famous role, but it's the one that sticks with me the most. I was sad to hear that. So now Tommy Boy and Tommy Boy's dad in the fictitious setting are both dead. It's a bummer. A lot of the stuff I was reading about it was talking about his performance in Rambo 1. I guess he was the bad guy in that. And I got thinking, I was like, I don't think I ever saw Rambo 1. I've seen several of the Rambo movies, but I look back at what that one was about, and I was like, I have never watched this. So I don't know if, yep. So there you go. He was the sheriff in First Blood. I never watched that movie. So I guess I'll have to go back and watch Rambo 1. I'm not a huge Rambo fan. I've seen a few of them, like I said, over the years. Probably watched them on VHS primarily. Yeah, he was old. He was like 80. I mean, I'm old relatively, but he was like 82, I think it said, or 81, something like that. So it sounded like he'd mostly been doing plays the last couple decades or so. What acting work he was doing. I don't think he was doing a lot of movies. I think, honestly, I think another great Brian Dennehy couple of movies was FX and FX2. I could barely even tell you what those were about today, but so maybe they weren't as memorable as I'm saying they were. But those were like excellent VHS rentals back in the day. I don't know. I thought those were both fun movies to watch. I don't know if anyone's ever seen those. Thought he was 60 in Rambo. I don't know. I don't think he was that old. I mean, he probably was 60 by the time he did Tommy Boy, I guess, or thereabouts, which was like mid 90s. I don't know any other Brian Dennehy movies. It seemed like he was one of those guys that, like, you'd be watching a movie, he'd probably have a small role in it, and you'd be like, oh man, that guy's good. And he would always pull off a good performance in whatever small bit he had, but he really wasn't much of a leading guy. Like, I think FX and FX2 were like two of the only movies that he probably was like a co-lead even in. He had gray hair in Rambo, really. That's crazy. All right, I'm gonna have to dig that out and check it out. So what I remember about FX, and I mean, this is going off like probably 25-year-old viewing, but I remember I was really into that movie as a kid. Both those, it was like him and his partner were movie or some kind of special effects creators, like with modeling clay or something. I don't know, like, and technology, like they could whip up crazy little contraptions, and I can't remember if it was like a espionage type situation or whatever, but their skills with that then became relevant to whatever it was that they were trying to do. I don't know if they were trying to solve a murder or whatever. I need to go back and watch those movies, but I just remember Brian Dennehy was one of the two main guys, and the other guy was also unmemorable. I don't even know who he was, and he was really good in it. And those movies at the time I really liked, but I don't know if there's a Blu-ray or anything of them. I think they're pretty low key, but they'd be cool. McFly, I just saw your text. I think you sent it a while ago. I just noticed it. Let me check. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Let me see. I still got nothing back, by the way. I assume he probably is in bed or something. Yeah. Yeah, that's accurate. So you should be able to get a hold of him there. Oh, and here we go with my Discogs digest of the day that is recommending something that I wanted to buy. I think I talked about it on last week's chat. Just that's one of the most dangerous apps you can download, because you start putting stuff on your want list and then you get notifications every time somebody lists it. Yeah. I mean, I guess Weird Science and FX would have some similarities. Weird Science just seemed like it was more like a comedy, I guess. FX was more, I don't want to say like super serious in tone, but it just was more, I don't know, whatever. I'm probably explaining that movie horribly, but I just know I used to like it. What is one of the most expensive records I purchased, and how much was it? So one of my local friends asked me that question a couple weeks ago. We were talking about it in person. I think it was pretty recently. So my favorite band of all time is Guided by Voices. They've got a huge, ridiculous catalog. They typically put out like 2 to 3 albums a year and singles and all kinds of stuff on top of that. So have been making music since the early 80s and are still churning out albums today. And I bought their very first debut EP on vinyl when I was in LA for Christmas, which I was actually there to see Guided by Voices play a New Year's show. And I went to Amoeba. So if you're familiar with Amoeba Records in LA, and also they have them in San Francisco and Berkeley, California. It's an absolutely massive record store, and I shouldn't even just say record store. I should just say entertainment store. So they got a massive movie selection. They have a huge selection of like entertainment related books and posters and knickknacks, and I mean huge selection of CDs and vinyl, cassettes. They had a wall of cassette singles. I mean, like, you name it, it's like the mecca for that stuff. And the Hollywood location is by far the biggest. And they've got what they call their rare wall or whatever, and it's just a giant wall of records that are high dollar. And I was wandering around the store, and I mean, just give you an idea of just how deep the selection is. They have little shopping baskets that you can pick up and throw records and CDs and stuff in. And like, that sounds ridiculous that you would buy so many records in one setting that you need a shopping basket to carry them, but you'll find out pretty quick just from wandering around in there that you need it. I cannot leave any of their locations without spending a ton of money and buying a bunch of stuff. And you'll see CDs and stuff that you may have just completely forgotten that you wanted or that you didn't even know existed. I mean, their selection is ridiculous, and their prices are very fair. And I was wandering around, and I looked at the rare record wall, and there it was. It was Guided by Voices' first EP from 1986. I think it's considered a print run of 300 or maybe 500 max. And they had it on the wall for $300. And that's by far the most I've ever spent on a record. But it just was so serendipitous that I was there to see Guided by Voices play a New Year's show. I'm in LA. They've got the record on the wall. I'd never seen it in person before. I've only seen it on eBay. It was in fantastic condition, which you can't always guarantee you're going to find. And so I decided to go for it, and I'm really glad I did. So where the story gets interesting is I went to Amoeba, like, I guess it was 2 days before the concert. And the leader of Guided by Voices is actually a huge record collector himself. He actually frequents record stores even in the St. Louis area whenever he's passing through town, because I think his wife has family here. And I found out while I was at the concert talking to one of the locals that he was actually in Amoeba the day after I went, building his own basket of stuff. So knowing, and I've met him before, but I mean, I think knowing that we would have been both record hunting at the same time, potentially, I could have gotten not only their debut album, which I've never seen before, but I know he would have signed it for me, and that would have been the ultimate thing to take back from that trip. So, but I'll have other opportunities, I'm sure, in the future that maybe I can get that record signed, and I think it'd be cool to have that one, because I'll never sell that. That's something I'm going to keep. And so yeah, that's probably the most expensive record I've ever bought. But what's sad about that is by far not even the most expensive Guided by Voices record out there. Somebody sold one of their handmade covered albums from 1992 on eBay a few weeks ago, and I think it went for $3,600. And the story with that is it was a run of 500 albums. I've got the repress of it, of course, but it was a run of 500 albums, but every single one had a unique cover and unique artwork on it. So every one is like a piece of art. It just depends on, which member of the band did the artwork cover and kind of what the provenance of it is and all that stuff. But this was actually a particularly cool one as far as the artwork that sold on eBay. And I think it went for $3,600, which is insane. So I had an opportunity to buy one of those once a few years ago. I was in Cleveland, and honestly, I screwed up. I was at a record store there. It wasn't even out on the floor. I just happened to ask the owner if they had any Guided by Voices rare stuff, which I try to do when I'm in record stores around the country. And he just whipped out a copy of it from behind the counter and was like, "Oh yeah, I got this in. It's been sitting here forever, but I guess I would sell it." And I'm like, "Seriously?" And so I'm sitting there drooling over it, and I ask him how much, and he tells me, he just like pulls the price out of just top of his head, like didn't look it up or anything. He's like, "Well, I know it's really hard to get, so I want $750 for it." And I was like, I thought long and hard, and I went to lunch and thought about it. I remember, and I walked back down there, and I was like, "Dude, I'm not trying to lowball you, but I really want that, and like, I just don't want to really spend that kind of money on a record. I never envisioned myself spending that much on a single record." I was like, "Is there any way you could do like 500 on it?" And he's like, "No, I can't." And so I was like, "What can you do on that? I would really like to have that, but I can't see myself spending $750." And so he's like, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to put it out on the floor. I'm going to mark it $850. I'll let it sit for up to a month, and then if it doesn't sell, I'll email you and we can talk, and I'll ship it to you because I know you're out of town." I was like, "Deal." So what happened since then? Never heard from him again. I never followed up and called him, but I also never heard from him again. And then coincidentally, I found some guy's blog post and bragging that they found this album sitting in a store in Cleveland for $850, and they couldn't believe they got such a deal on it. And I know it was the exact copy because obviously the covers are one of one, so it had the artwork, and I was like, that could have been me. But the funny thing about it is, $750 is a ton of money to spend on a record. I'm not judging my decision to not buy it that day. But honestly, had I bought that, it would have been brilliant, even from a reselling point, because even that cover with a less desirable artwork is easily worth $2,000 today. And this was probably 3 or 4 years ago. So I blew it. I mean, I should have bought that and sat on it a couple years and sold it, if nothing else. So that is my story with expensive records. But yeah. Lost an eBay auction, a rare CD. Jeez. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like, reissues you never really know when stuff's going to get reissued. It's at the point now where once something climbs up in price so much, then obviously reissue labels realize that it's pretty smart to reissue it. So if you're good with the reissue, like I usually am too, it just pays to wait with most of the rare stuff. Fly bought a rare jazz album. You can tell me the story on that. I'm curious. Something you bought locally, or? Yeah, I would imagine those original Metallica prints would go for some big bucks. Or they're just trash to hell. I mean, you got to figure the average buyer of those back when they came out would have just abused the hell out of them. I think, and I guess another thing would just back with like expensive vinyl. Like I said, 300 or so is about the most I've ever spent on a record, but I've got records that are worth more than that. It's just I didn't spend that on them. So some stuff I've bought at the right time, right place, whatever. The stars aligned. But I have been working my way through and trying to get all my records cataloged on Discogs. I'm about maybe 70% through now. That's something I've been working on, just kind of listening to vinyl and then entering it in the app or thumbing through records and scanning as many as I can, the ones that have barcodes, and then manually entering the other ones into my collection on there and just trying to get it all cataloged. So that'll help me because a lot of times I own so many that like I don't even remember what I own when I'm out shopping, and I might buy something by mistake that I already have. That's happened a few times, and I always feel dumb. I'm like, how can I not remember I have this? But sometimes you lose track. Stan Kenton Blues. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know jazz very well. If you like jazz, there's a store in town I would definitely take you to if you ever get a chance to visit St. Louis. They've got a huge record selection in general, but like that's actually one of their specialties. So they've got the main floor of the store, which is where I usually spend my time. It's all the rock music and pop and whatever else. But the second floor is, is all jazz and blues stuff. And I know they've got some crazy stuff up there that's pretty tough to find. Yeah, the way Discogs works is it's going to give you kind of like a low, midpoint, and high pricing for any record you look up. And you can also look at the sales history on everything. So you can see like what the last copy sold for, what the most expensive copy sold for, what the least expensive copy sold for. Obviously, condition plays a huge part too. So it'll kind of let you take a look at how record condition, the sleeve condition, and then the actual vinyl condition play into the prices that it's getting, because everything is organized by what condition both of those are in. The marketplace it's all just user stuff that people are selling, so it's similar to eBay, I guess, in that way. If you want to sell something on there, you pay fees to Discogs. I actually have never sold anything on there. I've just bought a lot of stuff. I think the fees are less than eBay. I mean, it seems like people are pretty friendly to want to use that to sell records versus eBay. There's a lot of stuff you find on Discogs that you won't see on eBay. And then a lot of record stores will sell their rarer stuff on Discogs, or just operate maybe solely as a virtual store through Discogs. I buy a lot of stuff worldwide on there too. Like I actually just got a single in yesterday from the UK that I ordered like 3 weeks ago, and I totally forgot I even ordered it. But you'll see people sell, Euro exclusive stuff on there really cheap, and sometimes the shipping is more than the actual record, which is what the case was in this. But it still can be worth it for something that you can't find locally. So, no, not Record Exchange. Record Exchange is just like a hoarder's paradise. I mean, I like the owners and the staff at Record Exchange. I think they're nice people, but honestly, that store's getting a little dangerous to shop in. I mean, there's just stuff stacked everywhere, and none of it's stored properly. And it's like, I think it's cool that basically if you bring something in to trade in, like nothing gets refused, but that's also its downfall, is that nothing gets refused. So the junk to quality ratio is so skewed in that store. And it's honestly a little crazy to me that a full-size former library is top to bottom stuffed with vinyl. Like you can't even walk down most of the aisles. There's so much in that store now that they filled it up to that point. So I just think it's some hoarding tendencies at play, and it stinks because it really hurts the retail experience. I've bought some really cool stuff at that store over the years. It's just number one, I just don't feel like I have the time to dig through that place anymore. There's so much junk to go through to find one or two things you want. Yeah, I don't know when the last time you went in there was, but I mean, it's gotten noticeably more ridiculous in the last year or two. Like there are whole aisles of the store that are literally just completely blocked by vinyl stacked front to back on the floor, and milk crates everywhere of vinyl, and then like all the actual bins to sort it in or just have piles laying on top of them, so you can't flip through them anymore. The CDs are all blocked because all these stacks of just random vinyl is laying all over it. Like it's kind of sad. I don't even know how to fix it. I mean, they've been wanting to move to a new location for several years, I know, but I don't know. It would take a lot of organization to get that place back on track, in my opinion. Yeah, an unsafe attic. That's a good way to put it. I don't know if you've ever been in the upstairs room, but all the 7-inch singles are in the upstairs room, and it's pretty intense. It's organized better, but it's insane to see the quantity of singles that are for sale in that store. Need to unload all your metal cassettes. Yeah, I would not sell those on Craigslist. If you've got desirable stuff, Discogs would be a good spot for that, or eBay. I would think that would sell pretty good. Oh yeah, if you were there 10 years ago, it was night and day better than it is today. Um, the other thing that was crazy, or that's crazy about that store, is because it's this old library from the 50s. All the lighting in there is this ancient fluorescent tube lighting, and it's in these like massive fixtures that probably have like 10 bulbs each just to light the amount of square footage that the store has. And when you go in there now, like 80% of the lighting in the store is burnt out. And I literally think there's no way for them to get a ladder out with all the shit on the floor to be able to get up to change the light bulbs. So it's just like periodically, like more and more light bulbs burned out, and they never get replaced. So it's like actually dark in the store now. There's times I'm having to get my phone out and use the flashlight just to be able to see what I'm looking at. Like it's so dark in certain corners of that store. So I don't know. It's a shame. I mean, I really wish they could get that place in order. It's cool that they have what they have, but man, they just really need someone to curate that collection. Yeah, I get it with the hoarding. I mean, I've got this is like a stack of replacement and dupes and stuff like that that I keep around, but I don't really need them by any means. Yeah, Discogs does cassettes too. They do all forms of recorded music media. So I've actually looked at some cassettes on there. I don't really. I try not to collect cassettes. I think it's a whole other. Like I'm so big into vinyl and CDs as it is. I don't need a third medium that I'm chasing rare stuff. But there is definitely some stuff that is still cassette exclusive that I would like to have. I'm not knocking it. Damn. Yeah, that's a good find. I'm trying to think. I thought I found some rare cassette recently that I sold. I most of the cassettes I get, if it's something that interests me, music wise, I've got a friend in southern Missouri that has a huge vinyl collection too. We listen to a lot of the same types of music, but he is bigger into cassettes, and so if I find something that I think he would like, I just buy it and I just give it to him because he'll trade me a record or whatever for it. I mean, we just do trades. Um, and it's like a twofold benefit because number one, I know he's going to be excited about it, and number two, it just keeps me from starting collecting cassettes, which is something I got to watch out for. Like I've got so many ridiculous media collections as it is, I don't need to start going after cassettes. I've got a few, and most of them are just like my stuff I used to have from back in the day, but I definitely don't want to keep adding to that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that metal and Metallica and stuff like that, like that's, I know there's a lot of people that want it for sure. So it doesn't surprise me that it went for money. Some cassettes, though, I mean, you see and you're like, oh, this would go for decent money, and then you look it up and it's completely worthless. So it's really hard to know because the cassette market is very different than even CDs and especially vinyl. Yeah, like I'm Fox was in here earlier and joined for a minute, but he mentioned like an anime I need to check out, and I mean that's one of those like one of those things I purposely try to avoid. Um, like the few anime type stuff I've watched or own, I enjoy, and that's good, but also really bad because if I get into it, I'm gonna get really into it, and then the next thing I'm gonna know, I'm gonna have like 1,000 Blu-rays or DVDs or whatever, and I just don't need that right now. I've got too much media as it is. So it's like one of those things I like just purposely try to avoid so I don't start. Just like drug PSAs, like not even once. Anime, not even once. Same reason I never got into like magic cards and all that. I know That's a drug addiction you will never kick if you get into that stuff. Well, guys, it has been 3 hours. I thank you for keeping me company. I do think, though, I'm going to jump off. I want to play my new arcade game that I got in some more before bed. And thanks for joining. Maybe we'll do another one of these next week if you guys are up for it. Lenny, definitely check out McFly's channel. It's awesome. He posts a lot of great videos. Short form, long form, pickups, pissed off at GameStop experiences that I can identify with. Definitely think that's a sub you need. He's just a great all-around guy I can recommend as well. So it's the channel name that he's chatting under here. TRU McFly, True McFly. So yeah, check it out. Hopefully you'll post some content too. Maybe that's your next quarantine time event that you can do. Get some videos posted to your collection. And I guess that's about it. So thanks, you guys. Have a good night. And I'll talk to you both soon. Keep in touch. Hope you guys are doing well.